Story 1. My mom and sister made me reject my dream job to support them, but I later discovered that my mom had illegally drained the college funds Dad left. Have you ever felt like your own family is purposely sabotaging your future? That is exactly what I, 22F, am struggling with right now. My mother, 45F, and sister, 19F, recently pushed me to turn down a fantastic job offer at a major tech company in San Jose, and I'm still trying to absorb what happened. Let me paint you a picture of how we arrived here. 2 years ago, my father died in a vehicle accident on his way home from work. He was the type of father who never missed any of my coding competitions or academic events, even when he was overburdened with work. Every Sunday morning, we had this custom where he'd cook his famous pancakes, which were simply regular pancakes with chocolate chips, but he was so proud of them. He'd tell us stories from his college days while flipping them and cracking us up with his bad dad jokes. Prior to the accident, our family life was not perfect, but it was stable. My parents had troubles, as do all couples, but they balanced each other out nicely. Dad was the calm, analytical kind who could settle any issue with his careful reasoning, whereas Mom was more emotional and impetuous. They made it work, and our home felt secure and predictable. Everything changed following Dad's death. It wasn't simply the evident loss. It was as if our entire family dynamic had collapsed. Mom became emotionally dependent on my younger sister, Ashley, or perhaps the other way around. Regardless, they created a tight, even smothering bond that made me feel like an alien in my own family. Ashley became the focus of Mom's universe, while I was consigned to the role of the responsible one, expected to give up everything for the family's sake. I should clarify about Ashley. Even before Dad died, she was always the most theatrical member of the family. I was the quiet kid who spent hours coding in my room, while she was the social butterfly who required constant attention. Dad used to balance Mom's tendency to accommodate Ashley's every desire, but now he was gone. There was no one to provide a reality check. Their relationship evolved gradually, but unmistakably. Ashley's little crises escalated into family emergencies. When she didn't make the cheerleading squad in her senior year of high school, her mother let her miss school for a week and maxed up her credit card with comfort items. When she didn't get into her first-choice institution, Mom spent 2 weeks calling administrators and even applying for a loan to make a donation to the school. Meanwhile, I tried to keep everything together. I maintained a 4.0 GPA in computer science, worked part-time at the university's IT department to help pay bills, and cared for my younger brother, Tommy, 10 million. Tommy is such a sweet kid. He's the only one who still sees me as a real person rather than a tool to be utilized when necessary. He's incredibly perceptive for a 10-year-old. Tommy acquired Dad's quiet brilliance and empathy, while Ashley inherited Mom's dramatic tendencies. Since Dad's death, he's been my primary source of genuine affection in this house. I graduated from college this year with a computer science degree, and against all chances, I received an incredible job offer from one of San Jose's top IT businesses. The interview process was harsh, with 6 rounds of technical interviews, coding challenges, and behavioral tests. I prepared for months, staying up late to learn algorithms and data structures while also fulfilling my family responsibilities. When I received the offer letter, I couldn't believe my eyes. The base salary was $125,000, plus a signing bonus and stock options that made my head spin. This wasn't simply a job. It was an opportunity to establish a legitimate career and possibly even aid my family financially. Once I was established, I could finally repay all of my student loans, which Mom couldn't co-sign for because she was too busy paying off Ashley's shopping bills. But last week, Mom entered my room with that expression on her face, as if she were going to explode a bomb that would destroy everything. She sat on my bed, took up the plush penguin Dad bought me for my 16th birthday, one of the few things I still have from him, and said, "Olivia, we need to talk about your job offer." My stomach immediately sank. She went on to tell me that Ashley was struggling with her first year of college and needed to take a vacation. She apparently has anxiety and needs to return home. This entails additional expenses, which Mom cannot handle alone. She advised me to ignore the San Jose offer and seek a local job instead so that I could help with the finances and care for Tommy. Ashley's worry manifests itself mysteriously when things don't go her way. She had no issue performing in a 3-hour dance showcase last month. But when her teachers required her to attend morning courses, she experienced crippling social anxiety. She can spend hours at parties with her friends, documenting every second to Instagram. Yet she supposedly has panic attacks when it comes to time to study for tests. I try to reason with Mom. I spend hours showing her my financial plans, explaining how I would send money home once I had settled in, and even promising to assist Ashley in finding resources for her purported mental health difficulties. But Mom would not hear it. Family comes first. She kept stressing, as if my desires and goals were not important to the family's well-being. What was the worst part? While I was talking with Mom, Ashley was in her room sharing images of her recent shopping trip on Instagram. The same sibling who claims she is too anxious to continue college spent hundreds of dollars on new clothes and makeup. I saw the receipts in her email. Yes, we have a family computer. She spent $876,000. I was the strong one in this family, which meant that my feelings and dreams were irrelevant. The following days were a flurry of anxiety and desperate planning. I contacted my college advisor, who was outraged by the scenario but couldn't provide much assistance. I called the company's HR department to explain my predicament and request additional time, but they could only extend the deadline by a few days. Without family assistance or a co-signer for an apartment contract in San Jose, my options were quickly dwindling. I even attempted to appeal to Mom's sensible side. I produced a detailed spreadsheet demonstrating how my San Jose salary will benefit the family more in the long run than a local job paying half the amount. I looked for local therapists that could help Ashley cope with her anxiety while still allowing her to attend school. I volunteered to schedule regular video conversations with Tommy to keep involved in his life. Nothing worked. How did Mom respond? Your father would be so disappointed in you for being so selfish. It stung more than anything else. Dad was the one who bought my first computer, stayed up late to help me debug my first programs, and always encouraged me to dream big. Using his memory to control me seemed like a new low. That's when something unexpected occurred. My Uncle James, 42 million, Dad's younger brother, arrived abruptly at our doorstep yesterday. He's always been the cool uncle who pays attention, but we hadn't seen much of him since Dad's burial. He'd apparently been trying to call Mom for weeks, but she was ignoring him. He looked at my face and knew something was amiss. While Mom was preoccupied with Ash's current crisis, she was crying because someone had unfollowed her on Instagram. Uncle James and I sat on the back porch, where Dad used to educate me about constellations on clear evenings. I told him everything. I told him about the job offer, Mom's demands, Ashley's spending habits, and how I felt as if my future was slipping away. Tommy came out to join us as I was speaking, cuddling up next to me as he often does when he notices I'm angry. He's incredibly perceptive for a 10-year-old. Tommy acquired Dad's quiet brilliance and empathy, while Ashley inherited Mom's dramatic tendencies. Since Dad's death, he has been my primary source of genuine affection in this house. Instead of simply sympathizing, Uncle James had a determined expression in his eyes, similar to how Dad would appear when he was solving a problem. Your dad would never have wanted this for you, he replied, his voice firm but gentle. Then he made me an offer that would change everything. He has a guest home near his business, in a city about an hour from San Jose, and he's prepared to let me stay there for free until I get established. He even offered to co-sign any required loans. While we were conversing, I received a text from my probable future manager at the IT company. She stated she was impressed with my interviews and was excited to have me on the team. They are working on several cutting-edge AI initiatives that are completely aligned with my interests. Reading that message while sitting next to the lone adult who seemed to care about my future felt like the universe was sending me a signal. For the first time in weeks, I felt hopeful. However, when we informed Mom about this possibility, she exploded. The transition was sudden and frightening. She transformed from the passive-aggressive manipulator I had become accustomed to into someone I hardly knew. She accused me of leaving my family, called me selfish, and then dropped a bombshell I didn't see coming. You're just like your father, always putting yourself first. Uncle James intervened quickly, telling Mom she was out of line. He reminded her that Dad had worked tirelessly to support this family, that he had taken the late shift at work, the one he was driving home from when the tragedy occurred, in order to pay for Ashley's dance lessons. The fight that followed was heated, with Ashley joining in to call me selfish and Tommy crying in the corner. The things Mom said during that dispute indicated a lot about how she truly regards me. Apparently, I was always difficult, even as a child. My concentrate on academics rather than socializing was unusual. Even my decision to study computer technology rather than something more suitable for a girl was indicative of my defiance. It seemed as if years of animosity had finally been released. I'm currently sitting in my room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Uncle James demanded I begin packing just in case, and I'm now trying to figure out what to do next. On one side of my laptop screen, there's a job offer letter, and on the other, there are San Jose apartment ads. The deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Uncle James is downstairs, ready to assist me if I decide to move out, but Mom's warning to cut me off completely if I leave still rings in my ears. Tommy left a note under my door a few minutes ago. In his shaky handwriting, he wrote, "I love you, Olivia. Dad would want you to be happy." I'm trying not to cry on the page while I type this. I realize this is long, but I needed to get it out. I understand that this is tricky, but am I wrong in wanting to take advantage of this opportunity? Should I give up my work to keep the family at peace? Or should I accept Uncle James' offer and risk ruining my connection with Mom and Ashley? I've spent my entire life being responsible, dependable, and willing to make sacrifices. For once, I'd like to select myself, but my guilt is eating me alive. What if Mom is correct? What if I'm being selfish? I will provide an update after I have reached a decision. My hands are shaking so terribly that I can hardly type this. Thank you for reading. If you've made it this far, any advice is welcome. Update 1. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who left positive comments on my previous post. Your remarks provided me the strength to make a decision. I chose to accept the job offer and seek Uncle James' assistance. But what occurred next completely surprised me. The morning after I made my decision, I got up early to begin transferring my belongings. Mom and Ashley weren't talking to me, as I expected. I didn't expect to see my laptop missing from my desk. Following a frenzied hunt, I discovered it in Ashley's room. She attempted to send an email denying my employment offer from my account. Thankfully, she was unaware of the two-factor authentication I had set up. When confronted, Mom defended her. Ashley was just trying to protect our family. That was the moment I knew I had made the correct decision. Uncle James helped me load everything into his vehicle while Mom and Ashley watched from the window, not even coming down to say goodbye. Only Tommy ran out to hug me, putting his favorite action figure in my pocket and murmuring, "For good luck." The drive to Uncle James's house was relatively peaceful. He didn't force me to communicate, just let me analyze everything while my favorite indie rock station played softly in the background. It reminded me of drives I used to take with Dad to clear my mind. Getting situated in the guest house was weird. It's little but ideal for me, a studio with a tiny kitchen and a workstation by the window. Uncle James had already set up a workstation for me, complete with 2 monitors. "Your dad would have wanted you to have the right setup," he told me. The true shock occurred as I was organizing my documents for the new employment. I discovered an old envelope in Dad's work briefcase that Uncle James had kept in storage. Inside were letters from Dad to each of us kids, intended to be opened when we turned 25. I know I shouldn't have opened mine so early, but with everything going on, I needed some connection with him. The letter altered everything. Dad described his own experiences with family pressure when he was younger. His parents wanted him to take over their modest business, but he chose to study engineering instead. He wrote about how happy he was of my interest in technology and hoped I'd have the fortitude to pursue my aspirations, even if it meant making difficult decisions. But there was something else in the envelope, bank statements indicating that Dad had established a separate savings account for my college tuition. I'd never known about this account. It had enough money to cover at least 2 years' tuition. When I showed these to Uncle James, his expression worsened. He made several calls and discovered that Mom had somehow gotten access to this account after Dad died and fully depleted it. I started a new job yesterday. The staff is great, and the projects are even more exciting than I anticipated. My boss personally led me around and introduced me to everyone. During lunch, she mentioned that she had been pulling for me since my interview, especially when I solved a particularly difficult coding problem in an unusual manner. Mom has been phoning nonstop since I left, leaving voicemails alternating between guilt and rage. Ashley wrote a lengthy diatribe on social media about how I had abandoned the family. I blocked them both for now. I need room to concentrate on my fresh beginning. Uncle James helped me open a separate bank account for moms, and I'm learning about financial independence from a coworker who also offers personal finance classes. I am also looking at therapy choices that are covered by my new health insurance. The toughest part is missing Tommy. We video chat every night before his bedtime, while Mom attends her evening yoga session. He had been telling me about his science project, and his eyes brightened up when I offered to help him code a simple game for it. I keep rereading Dad's letter anytime I'm feeling guilty. One line in particular stands out. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose your own path, even when others try to hold you back out of their own fear. There's more to look into with the education fund, and Uncle James is assisting me in gathering information. I'll provide another update once I have more information. For the time being, I'm focusing on learning my new work and creating my new life one day at a time. Update 2. It has been 3 weeks since my previous update. I regret for the delay, but what I discovered necessitated thorough investigation and legal consulting before I felt safe publishing. Remember the college fund that I mentioned discovering in Dad's papers? Uncle James and I have spent the past few weeks trying to figure out what happened to that money. What we discovered was far worse than we had feared. With the help of Dad's old bank colleague, we discovered that Mom had not only accessed one account, but had systematically depleted multiple accounts Dad had set up. There was a college fund for me, another for Tommy's future schooling, and a general emergency fund. All were emptied within months following Dad's death. Last week, Mom sent me a lengthy email. She sought to get ahead of the narrative, indicating that she was aware we were investigating. The email began with a half-hearted apology for possibly being too harsh, but gradually evolved into something else entirely. She left a message. There's something you need to know about your father. While I was pregnant with you, he had an affair. The note went on to explain how she uncovered the affair, how Dad begged forgiveness, and how she graciously accepted him back. She said that this was why she was always aloof from me, because I reminded her of that difficult time. She concluded by offering that if I discontinued my research into the accounts, we could focus on repairing our relationship. Here's the thing. Her story didn't add up. Uncle James and I dug through Dad's old records and discovered something unusual. While Mom alleged Dad was having an affair, he was actually working double shifts to pay off Mom's credit card debt. We discovered old credit card statements with enormous charges from that time period, all made by Mom. The major surprise occurred when we realized Dad's old email address was still operational. We discovered years of correspondence with his lawyer discussing his concerns about Mom's spending habits. He had been recording everything, safeguarding valuables, and opening separate accounts for his children's future. He was not having an affair. He was attempting to shield us from Mom's fiscal carelessness. The emails also revealed something heartbreaking. Dad had planned to leave Mom, not for another woman, but because he was concerned about her influence on the kids. The accident occurred only 2 weeks before he planned to file for divorce. I took all of this material to the lawyer that Uncle James recommended. She was appalled. Apparently, what Mom did with the accounts following Dad's death was not only immoral, but unlawful. She had fabricated documents to obtain access to accounts that she was not permitted to touch. The lawyer discovered something else concerning Ashley's alleged college fees, which Mom had stated as the reason she required my assistance. The majority of that money went toward shopping sprees and luxury things. We discovered credit card bills indicating purchases at high-end retailers, spa treatments, and even a secret spring break trip to Cancun, all while Ashley was allegedly too anxious to attend lectures. I spent hours scrolling through Ashley's social media posts, chronicling every extravagant purchase, luxury vacation, and shopping spree. The time frame coincides exactly with the loss of monies from Dad's accounts. Mom wasn't just allowing Ashley's behavior. She was sponsoring it with money that was legally intended for all of us. The lawyer claims we have a good case of financial fraud. The data left by Dad, together with the paper trail of Mom's activities following his death, creates a clear picture of systematic theft and deception. Tommy's predicament is what concerns me the most right now. He's still living in that toxic environment, seeing Mom and Ashley spend money that should have gone for his future. Uncle James is exploring our options for obtaining custody. The lawyer believes we may have a case, particularly given the financial malfeasance. I have not responded to Mom's email yet. The lawyer advised against any direct communication at this time. But Mom and Ashley must have sensed something was amiss, because they've launched a social media smear campaign against me, portraying me as an ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family for a high-paying tech career. The truth is that learning of Dad's impending divorce has been both painful and validating. Painful because Dad died before he could shield us from Mom's destructive actions. Validating because it proves he witnessed what was going on. He was not immune to Mom's manipulation and financial abuse. He was actively attempting to stop it. I'm preparing all of the documentation for legal action. Uncle James has been great throughout this process, spending countless hours assisting in building our case. My employment is going well, and my team has been understanding of my need for occasional personal time to deal with things. The coming weeks will be critical as we move forward with legal processes. I'll post another update when I can, but for the time being, I need to focus on constructing our case and staying emotionally healthy through it all. My company's health insurance provides therapy, so I started seeing someone to help me digest things. At least I now know the truth. Dad was not the villain in Mom's story. He tried to be our hero to the end. Update 3. The previous 6 weeks have been a blur of legal proceedings, life changes, and final decisions. What began with discovering Dad's buried letter has resulted in a full overhaul of our lives. The court case moved quickly thanks to the tremendous evidence we had. The judge was particularly concerned about Mom's methodical depletion of Tommy's education money. The most incriminating evidence came from Mom's scrupulous record-keeping. She had documented every unlawful transfer in her personal planner, most likely never expecting anyone to discover it. When Mom was presented with the evidence in court, her veneer finally shattered. She admitted to everything, forging paperwork to get into Dad's finances, misusing the insurance funds, systematically concealing financial records. The judge's decision was straightforward: full restoration of all diverted cash, plus interest. Mom is currently facing criminal charges for fraud. Ashley's reaction was revealing. Instead of supporting Mom, she quickly distanced herself, claiming she had no idea where the money for her shopping sprees came from. Her Instagram influencer hopes were dashed when the court ordered her to return all products purchased with misappropriated monies. The biggest success, however, was not a financial settlement. It was gaining custody of Tommy. When the judge recognized Mom's record of financial abuse and manipulation, as well as evidence of her continuous destructive conduct, she granted me interim custody, with Uncle James serving as co-guardian. Tommy moved in with me last week, and the difference is already evident. He's smiling more, sleeping better, and is enthused about the coding projects we're working on together. My career has accelerated in ways I never expected. My initiative has piqued the interest of high management, and I have been elevated to team leader. The steadiness of my employment and income played a crucial role in the custody decision. Mom made one final attempt at manipulation, vowing to forgive everything provided I dropped the accusations and returned Tommy. Her lawyer instructed her to stop when I provided recordings of her threatening phone calls. Ashley has been posting massive aggressive posts about toxic family members and treachery, but her power has diminished since she was forced to return her costly outfit. She's moved in with a friend, refusing to live with Mom now that the money has run out. Uncle James has been my rock throughout this. He's helped Tommy set up his new room, located him a terrific school nearby, and even opened a new college fund for him, which Mom can't access. We have weekly family dinners where we talk about Dad's pleasant memories, which are slowly healing after years of manipulation. The guest house has become our home. Tommy's room is filled in science posters and programming flowcharts that we created together. He's joined a robotics club at his new school, and his passion reminds me of Dad. I started therapy to analyze everything, and it's helping me realize that none of this was my fault. Dad tried to protect us, and now I'm completing what he started. Looking back at my initial post, I can't believe how far we've come. From nearly giving up on my aspirations to now completely realizing them while providing Tommy with the secure home he deserves. Mother and Ashley's true colors were shown, but by losing them, we gained something far more valuable: truth and freedom. To those who may be in similar situations, believe your intuition. If something feels off, it probably is. Sometimes the family you choose is more significant than the one you were born into. Thank you for giving me the courage to research while my world was collapsing. Your encouragement gave me the courage to fight for justice, not just for myself, but for Tommy and Dad's memory. You transformed our life. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Kicked out as a teen due to false rumors spread by my brother. My parents later see my success and demand money after abandoning me years later. When my parents noticed my accomplishment and demanded money after they left me, I was kicked out as a teen for false rumors passed by my brother. I'm a 28-year-old female with a twin brother. My twin brother and I grew up getting somewhat different treatment from our parents. As the so-called black sheep, my parents really appeared convinced for some reason that my brother was destined for brilliance, while I was more interested in sports or hanging out with friends than in academics. Their continuous comparisons demoralized me and damaged my self-esteem. I was treated like an afterthought when a child, having to watch my brother throw lavish birthday celebrations with friends, while I was never even allowed to bring guests back to our house. He frequently slept over with them. To be really honest, I hated every minute of my youth. My grandma seemed to be the only family member who really gave me any thought. She always brought my preferred chocolates and sometimes dropped a few bucks to me so I could treat myself later when she visited us. This obvious preference for my twin brother evolved over the years into emotional abuse aimed at me. My parents would publicly criticize my hobbies and academics. No matter how hard I tried, I could not seem to satisfy their ideal of the perfect child. Though I excelled in athletics, they forbade me from engaging in extracurricular activities since they wanted me to focus exclusively on schoolwork, exactly as my brother. It was annoying, and as a little child, I felt powerless. I was grounded once again later in my sophomore year. This time the crime was having Snapchat on my phone. Apart from all teenagers my age, I had done absolutely nothing wrong, except I had downloaded this app to keep in touch with my buddies. But since my parents had prevented me from talking with my pals, this was a major offense and a betrayal of their trust, said my parents. They went batshit insane on me, dumped all of my stuff around the room, then removed the doors from their hinges and informed me I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Seeing my parents treat me this way, my identical brother made my life worse instead of helping me. Our parents' unfair behavior produced a poisonous surrounding that let him take advantage of the circumstances. He started lying about me, accusing me of things I never done, so he might get away with everything. Should he steal something, he would easily point the finger on me, and my parents, already inclined to view me negatively, his falsehoods were easily accepted. He would make fun of my appearance and belittle me in front of my schoolmates. Still, I had a large group of friends at school because I was friendly and open about forming relationships. But my twin, an introvert, felt uncomfortable and started to hate that I could interact with people when no one came up for his birthday at our 14th birthday celebration. This jealousy peaked. While in sharp contrast, my friends took me ice cream, and I had an overall great day. I have no idea why his friends did that to him. This enraged my brother still more. My brother started spreading false accusations about me at school, presenting me as a spoiled child in order for retribution. Since our parents liked him more, he misled everyone by saying I was physically mistreating him at home. I had no idea he went to such a terrible degree. He would punch himself carefully, causing injuries like a black eye or bruised shoulder in order to create evidence. He would boldly enter school the next day, showing the self-inflicted injuries as evidence of my claimed brutality and create stories. He would lie, claiming that his injuries were from innocent sports like football with pals, whenever our parents asked him about them. People started to trust his twisted view of events as the lies and his claimed black eyes gained momentum. Whispers soon spread, and even my friends started to glance at me with mistrust. I first observed minute changes. People who used to converse with me in the halls suddenly started to fade. Group hangouts started to get fewer and more spaced-apart invitations. People hesitated to be around the apparently spoiled girl accused of aggression. As if a switch had been turned off, I plucked the bravery one day to ask my former best buddy why our relationship had deteriorated. She talked about how my twin brother had been spreading gossip about me. She exposed the thorough he had told everyone, charging me of things I had never done. Hearing her say startled me. The sensation was one of mistrust mixed with incredulity, as though the ground under me had collapsed. Someone I grew up with, my brother, was fabricating stories about me, accusing me of doing things I would never have even considered. That was a devastating betrayal that left me with a knot in my gut and a weighty heart. The day I addressed my brother at school, he chose to ignore me. When I urged him to stop lying about me, he grinned at me and told me I deserved to rot alone. His falsehoods and actions were beginning to worry me. Thus, I found it difficult to express myself. Though I wanted to talk to my parents, I worried they would view my brother above me, particularly considering that I had always been open to befriending others. The isolation pain, the lies, driven by jealousy for my brother, seemed to be destroying the relationships I had developed over years. Teachers, too, started to become caught in the rumors. It was a dreamlike sensation, as though I were living in a parallel universe in which the evil narrative woven by my twin eclipsed my actual self. The lies were influencing people's actual impressions of me, not only teenage chatter. They had evolved beyond simple gossip. The terrible news soon got to my principal, and suddenly my worst nightmare materialized. Along with our parents, the principal called my brother and me straight into his office to go over these supposedly rumors. Heart-thumping, I sat there as the principal insisted on the reality. Though I expected my brother would at last come clean, he doubled down on the lies. He told the principal straightforwardly that indeed the allegations were accurate and characterized me as a bully who roamed about physically assaulting him while our parents were not around. I found it hard to believe my brother kept telling this twisted tale about how I was furious at him for getting more attention from our parents, and shock flooded over me. Though everything of it was lies, he stayed to his tale like glue. Hearing my brother's tale, my mother started to cry. She grabbed onto my brother if he were some sort of hero, telling my brother that he was brave to speak up and that he would be ensuring nothing would ever happen to him. My dad sought to console him. That day, I tried to defend myself by begging the principal that everything was made up. Desperate to swim to the top, I felt as though I was drowning in a sea of accusations. Yet my brother persisted in saying that I was this furious, aggressive person venting daily on him. As my mother clutched on my brother, my tears kept flowing and I started to see accusing stares. It was like battling a wall of belief in my brother's invented narrative. Saying the school didn't accept bullying and that these were reasons to punish me, my principal chastised me severely. I begged him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, declaring he couldn't let it slip. Tears running down my face, I begged him to understand that I did nothing to help my brother. The principal insisted that I would be suspended for 10 days so that others may learn from this never to bully anyone. It really hit me, and I started crying even more, almost asking him to think twice. Furious and ashamed of the overall state of affairs, my parents hauled me from the principal's office. I refused to go. They were not understanding what I intended to provide as my argument. We left the institution, my heart weighed with shame and frustration. Things changed dramatically when we arrived home. Out of the blue, my dad started packing my stuff. Startled, perplexed, I had no idea what was occurring. When my mother questioned him what he was doing, he simply yelled that he cannot allow my brother to live in the same house anymore. I begged my brother to give them the truth, almost on my knees, but he stayed frigid, unmoved by my tears. After finishing packing, my dad, dumped the luggage into our foyer. Still pleading my dad not to kick me out, I grabbed to his legs. Like a dream coming to pass. A bully like me didn't deserve to dwell in his house, he told me. And he would ask his mother, my grandma, to come fetch me up should she so want. The planet seemed to have collapsed under my feet. Surrounded by my stuff, strewn in the foyer, booted out from my own house, I stood there shocked. My grandmother did show up finally. She helped me get into the passenger side by gathering all my stuff and arranging in the car. Before approaching my parents' front door, she checked to be sure I had on my seatbelt. She rang the doorbell, then started to shout at my dad for treating me this way. When he opened it, she cautioned him sternly that she would not hesitate to engage the police or CPS should he ever approach me or try to get in touch once more, as what he had done to a child like me may eventually land him in prison. Trying to avoid responsibility, my mother said it was mine, but my grandmother wasn't feeling it at all, emphasizing that I was only a young child who deserved not to be abused in such a merciless way. She stood her ground, defending me. I had never felt such power in my life till then, from my grandmother. She trusted me, rather than cowering to my parents as they thought. We finally left my house, the only place I had ever grown up in, behind us. It is impossible for me to adequately describe how intolerable the suffering I went through during that period. Though my grandma begged me to, I recall simply crying on the bed and not eating anything. She was likewise startled when I told her what my brother had done. She told me she thought my side of the story, and it made me glad at least one person had my back. The idea of going back to school was like stepping back into a lion's den once the 10 days of suspension ended. The faces of my students told volumes as I walked into the known hallways. Judgment, murmurs, and sidelong glances. The weight of the unfounded charges hung in the air. My brother, meantime, deliberately disregarded me and behaved as though I didn't exist. A few people who saw him as the victim of my assaults and agreed his side of the story had grown friends with him. No matter how hard I attempted to present my side of the narrative to anyone, it was ignored. I was an outsider, labeled unfairly, and carried around like a shadow wherever I went, the classroom, the cafeteria, the hallways. The eyes that locked with mine were contemptuous and mistrustful. I started to go alone. I would head down, show up for every class, have lunch by myself in the cafeteria, and head straight home. I had no friends, and it seemed as though everyone just didn't want me there. My parents never once phoned to see how I was doing throughout all this. My grandma would tell me again and over that life would finally be good and that this was not my fault. Having decent marks when I finished from high school, I was looking forward to college, where maybe I would have a better life. I first felt what freedom felt like only when I left for college. Nobody was monitoring my shoulders, none was comparing my marks, and none was trying to challenge me. For the first time, I ran into like-minded folks and developed friendships with them. Though my family and peers had caused emotional and physical scars over the years, I focused on putting all behind me and savoring this collegiate experience as much as I could. It was around this period that I developed my flair for content writing. Though I had always wanted to be a writer, I chose to give up on my ambition as I wasn't sure whether it would be long-term viable. But I decided to start freelancing and writing in order to pick some side money. Signing up on several freelancing platforms helped me land work from well-known companies. I began gradually compiling a portfolio of my works this way. I kept this side project throughout college and never approached my parents for one penny. Instead of landing a corporate job upon my college graduation, I discovered I could work full-time in content writing. The several clients and long-term professional ties I had with them helped them to rope me into several initiatives of theirs, thereby enabling me to be doing rather well. Having a respectable freelancing profession let me travel the globe as a digital nomad in addition to make me financially independent. Though it was certainly not easy, traveling helped me heal from past. I grabbed as much as I could and gambled on myself. I have seen so much of the globe throughout the years, yet I still have so much to see. My grandma was the only member of my family I thought about all through all this. I really loved her. When I moved out, Mom was quite depressed, yet she knew I had to be independent on my own. Though I have a busy schedule, I would make it a point to be with her whenever I could. On the weekends, I would go see her, usually sitting on the porch or enjoying meals together, lost in talks ranging from childhood stories to more current events. On weekends, I would spend whole days assisting Mom with housework or taking her for a leisurely stroll to the neighborhood park. Lately, I finished one of the most significant assignments of my career. Though I cannot name the brand, I was quite fortunate to create blogs and product descriptions for them. Following the assignment, I asked the team I collaborated with to offer me favorable feedback on my website, which they were more than glad to do. Knowing working with this brand was a big event, so I grabbed screenshots of some of their evaluations to publish on Instagram. Many additional content creators, as predicted, contacted me to celebrate my professional achievement and even share my tale to assist in dissemination. This is how I began receiving messages from random people needing assistance with their websites. Some of my family also spotted this and contacted out to congratulate me. Eventually, the principal of my college got in touch. Seeing that I was doing so well, he had gotten in touch with me and asked me to visit college for a lecture to discuss career paths as a content writer to students. Though I struggle with public speaking, I was really anxious, so I decided to take a chance and consented. My life seemed to have gone full circle when I stood before expectant faces, imparting my knowledge and views. In my lecture, I discussed the difficulties I encountered and how I persevered in spite of many demanding days. Empowering others and helping the writers' community flourish was quite honestly a really rewarding experience. As individuals related to several of my clips, they began to go popular on Facebook groups. Being at last appreciated for my effort felt fantastic. I received an invitation to speak on a local news station last week. The presentation highlighted the advantages of content writing, and they asked me to share with their viewers my path and observations. Though a little anxious, the chance excited me. I discussed my experiences, the value of client feedback, and how a little thank you note might create amazing possibilities. During the show, the chance to inspire more people in the profession and appeal to a larger audience humbles and excites me. I also posted some of these snippets on Instagram as it eventually aired, as I felt honored to be asked to a TV show. My cousins and family first began learning about my work performance this way. You see, my parents had no knowledge that I was working with well-known businesses and receiving invites to TV shows, as they never discussed me with anybody. This is how rapidly information got out inside my family. I suppose this TV interview must have at last made sense to my parents. A few days later, I was working on another job and found my phone quiet. While I checked my phone after finishing my work, I found 6 missed calls from my mother. Surprised, her name on my phone truly startled me, since it had been a long, long time since she had phoned me. After all those years of quiet, I couldn't understand why she was phoning. I hesitated, then called her back, and she picked up right away. When I asked her if everything was good, my mother started praising me. Usually seated right there with Mom, my dad also joined in the discourse. He began asking about my life and well-being, and I responded without much thinking. It wasn't odd until they started asking how much I was making these days. My dad answered that we were family, thus I shouldn't be shy sharing with them my salary. Since it is none of their concern, I assured him I was doing financially really well. Hearing this, my mother started to explain how difficult their life was these days. My brows wrinkled with mistrust. Here is essentially our conversation's general flow. Mom, we have been wishing to remodel the house for some time. We are retired now, though we have no savings left. Its shape is not ideal. Me okay. Mom, we have hope since your success. Having seen your TV interview today, we reasoned perhaps you could assist us by covering the renovation's costs. Dad, we are family first of all. You should not hesitate to forward some of your income to us. We truly need your assistance. Me, are you teasing me? Having not even spoken with you for years, why are you requesting money? While I appreciate the congrats, I am not going to assist you in any capacity. I wonder what motivated you to get in touch to me. Hearing this, my mother began to remark how I should have been appreciative and that I should have helped them as family. My dad also said that this was the least I could do, since my parents deserved to be looked for. I wanted to give them some of my thinking, since I was so offended at this. I thought suddenly of something. Rather than merely fighting with them, I chose to teach them a lesson for a lifetime. Since mistreating me all those years ago caused them to leech off me, I informed my parents I would be ready to assist them should they agree to my requests solely. My dad asked me perplexingly what they were. I immediately set out my demand. If they sought my assistance, they had to openly acknowledge in front of our family and friends that my brother was the brains behind the nasty allegations damaging my name. Believing their lies and manipulation would help them to humiliate my brother the same way they had humiliated me before everyone. I wanted them to own their deeds and admit the suffering they had caused. Hearing my impossible condition, my dad started to doubt the need of such an admittance. I stood my ground. Even though my mother informed me that this was all pretty pointless and that we could have a private conversation apart from others, this condition was non-negotiable. That was what any help they sought for in the future required. My dad spoke up as the tension grew, stressing his part as my father and underlining that it was my obligation to assist my needy family, emphasizing the years they had spent raising me. My mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to act morally and assist them. Their abrupt appeal struck me as ironic. I reminded them of the past, of the fact they had kicked me out, and of the fact my grandmother had reared me. Not they. They were increasingly restless, but I firmly reminded them that if they want to approach me and ask for my financial help going forward, then the truth had to be admitted publicly and my brother had to pay repercussions for his deeds. My folks have been calling me nonstop since our chat, but I'm avoiding their calls. Even phoning them back that day makes me regretful. If I did nothing at all to assist my parents, would I really be in the wrong? Update 1. Since I last told my tale a week ago, things have been a whirl, and the help and encouragement I have been getting from everyone has been deluging. Knowing that I'm not alone at this period makes one hopeful. After all they have gone through, I am happy everyone feels I should not interact with my parents or even think about helping them out. I knew it was quite almost impossible for them to do, hence I even set them such a condition. Though they might have discovered by now that it was all his lies, I know they will never put my brother through what they put me through. They love him too much. After my parents once more tried to get in touch with me today, my brother sent me a nasty text message. I ignored their calls. He composed this. Hey sis, I can tell you every day without you, and my life has been fantastic. It's been a long time since I seen you. Mom and Dad contacted you from what I heard, and you gave them an insane directive. You know, they're never going to follow through on it. They will never do anything to damage me, and they most obviously never loved you. Although I did lie about you 15 years ago, it has been a long time since then, hence cease being so self-serving and attempt to let go from the past. You are childless and single anyway, hence why would you not want to assist them with house repairs and renovation? Act moral and be a better daughter. Seeing the letter felt as though it were a stab to the chest. His lack of empathy was evident in the boldness to discount the hardships I had gone through and the conditions I had established. Emphasizing my single and childless status, the effort to guilt-trip me added still another degree of insensitivity. Not only was his implication that I should put their needs ahead of my own well-being objectionable, but it also underlined how little he considered me. Frustrated and driven by a deep need for justice, I determined it was time to intervene and expose the truth buried for too long. Sitting down to send an email to my parents and close relatives, I shared the terrible facts of my life and the unfair treatment I had suffered in my family house. In the email, I detailed how my parents treated me differently from my twin brother and the rigorous and repressive surroundings I had lived under. The email also explored the damaging and wholly false rumor my brother had disseminated about me in school, which had resulted in serious repercussions and damaged my name. I wrote on how my parents had kicked me out to the curb, and how had it not been for my grandma, by now I may have been dead in the streets. I encouraged everyone to read a note my brother had emailed. Toward the end, I included a screen grab showing him owning to lying about me. It was an unambiguous confession meant to reveal the lies that had lasted far too long. Just an hour ago, I wrote the email. Once my parents and brother see it, all hell will explode. I will let you know next wise on how my family responds to my email. Update 2. My last update was 1 month ago, and as you might imagine, a lot of things have transpired this month. My family burst upon getting the email. Relatives who were earlier ignorant of the degree of the favoritism and emotional abuse have criticized my parents. Many of the family members contacted me, apologizing for not being there for me and stating they had no idea about all this. I decided to contact a lawyer after my brother and dad sent me a torrent of text messages, beginning to get increasingly violent and nasty. She sent a notice of cease and desist. It essentially advised them not to get in touch with me anymore, that should they do, they would suffer severe legal repercussions, given they cease getting in touch. I suppose this must have terrified them straight. My grandmother supports me 100%, since she believes I've done the right thing by informing everyone what occurred. She is the only person that counts to me, hence I'm happy she has my back. Update 3. 2 months apart have gone between my last update. For now, I'm glad to say that all of my life is running smoothly. Professionally, my article writing company has been doing great. The offers to present at podcasts and seminars keep coming in, therefore confirming my reputation as a valued professional in my field of work. I am now as near to my grandmother as ever. Recently, I took a 1-week vacation from work so I could spend some time with her. These days she enjoys gardening and taught me a lot about different herbs and flowers at her yard. My best and most treasured memories are the times I spend with her, meal sharing, deep talks, or just hanging around. I'm glad my family is keeping away from me, since they haven't contacted me since the letter my attorney sent them. Since I personally started attending therapy, hopefully I can work on mending myself right now. I believe this will be the last update. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Am I the asshole for criticizing the name my cousin picked out for her baby and ruining her excitement? My cousin Stephanie and I are really more friends than relatives. An important note is that she's not really online much, so could be out of the loop on certain memes and jokes in internet culture, and TBH doesn't really understand the concept of viral internet references or how they work. Stephanie is pregnant and just found out it's going to be a girl about a week ago. She told a gathering of her best girlfriends that she's going to name her daughter Karen. The room instantly went cold, but after an awkward silence, everyone else politely said it was lovely. I couldn't bring myself to respond at all. Later in the evening, when Stephanie was out of the room, everyone was immediately like, OMG, that poor kid. And why would she pick Karen of all names? I was uncomfortable with this conversation, given that everyone had been so positive about the name to her face. I thought more about it over the next couple of days and just felt really weird about the whole thing. The name is really loaded to the point it could be detrimental to the baby, and Stephanie had no idea of the connotations to make an informed decision. So, a couple of days later, I tentatively brought it up. I told her I was so excited for the baby and just wanted her to have all available information when picking a name. I then started to explain that Karen has some negative connotations and has become sort of an internet joke to describe a specific kind of entitled, middle-aged woman. Stephanie instantly was furious and started talking over me, saying, "Why are you saying this? This is so mean." I was really surprised by her reaction. It felt very, very out of character. So I immediately stopped and said, "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just wanted to tell you something I thought you might not know." She replied, "That's the name I picked for my daughter, and you think I picked it as some kind of joke? I don't understand why you'd say something so hurtful." When she said that, I felt like it signaled that she didn't really understand what I was trying to tell her. So, after agonizing for a second about whether to press the issue, even though she was so angry, I felt like in for a penny, in for a pound, and since she was already mad, I wanted her to at least understand what I was trying to explain to her. I Googled Karen Know Your Meme on my phone and tried to show her the screen of results while saying, "Look, I'm just saying that there's more meaning to the name than you may realize." She stood up, pushed my phone away, and shouted, "Wow." She then stormed out of my home and drove away. My aunt and mom have been berating me all week because Stephanie told them that I made fun of her baby name. Stephanie has not spoken to me or responded to my text since. I can take a hint, and I'm not going to broach a topic again that caused so much distress, but I keep going back and forth on whether I was TA here by bringing it up in the first place. Note, in the original post, Opie was overwhelmingly given a YKA judgment in response to this post. Edit. Thanks, everyone. I have been properly schooled, and and I accept my judgment that I was TA here. Stephanie and I have a history of being extremely open and honest with each other. I was the maid of honor in her wedding, which we planned on being the case from a young age, and we always joked as teenagers that part of my duties would include talking her out of the marriage if the groom she picked sucked. And so maybe I was too flippant with approaching this topic due to our history and was unempathetic in underestimating how much she was already invested in the name she chose for her future daughter. I admit I'm a bit frustrated that Stephanie still doesn't understand what I was trying to tell her. She still thinks I was making some kind of weird, cruel joke, accusing her of picking the name as a joke. But I have messaged her a sincere apology that she accepted, and I will never speak of this again to Stephanie or baby Karen. I'll also stand up for Stephanie if her other friends talk the name around me again. If they're not willing to voice their thoughts to Stephanie directly, they need to not say the kinds of things they were saying behind her back. Edit 2, one more thing. I definitely was not trying to tell Stephanie to not name her daughter Karen. I just wanted her to make the decision either way, knowing the connotations, since I'd want someone to do the same for me if I picked a baby name with cultural baggage I wasn't aware of. I realize now I handled it poorly and was hurtful to Stephanie in the process, but I just wanted to be clear that I wasn't actively trying to talk her out of the name. I just didn't want her to be blindsided if it came up later. Additional context from Opie's comments. Stephanie and her husband have a deal on baby names where she picks girl baby names, he picks boy baby names, and they each have unlimited veto power for the other person's choices. He's on board with Karen, E. We're all the same age, late 20s, but neither of them spends time online or is even particularly tech-savvy. Update 1. My post last summer wasn't the most exciting or dramatic on AITA, but I wanted to provide an update if anyone is interested. Baby Karen was born healthy and happy back in October. She's an absolute sweetheart of a baby, and I'm totally in love with her. Between March and May, I didn't get to see her at all in person, but I was doing regular FaceTime/house party calls with Stephanie and Karen, and over the last few weeks, I've been going over to Stephanie's house to sit in her backyard and chat with Stephanie/coo at Karen from a lengthy distance. I have 2 reasons for updating. First, I've realized since Karen's birth that her name has taken on new meaning to me. When I'm with her, Karen just means her, and I don't think about the other connotations. In other words, you guys were right. That said, though, my second reason for updating is that Stephanie got back into her years and use Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic to keep in touch with people. She's been on it pretty regularly lately for the first time in years. Historically, she's not really been into social media. Most people in our area/social circle have been posting really heavily about being BLM and the protests happening right now, as well as racial justice issues more generally. As a result, Stephanie has now come into contact with a deluge of Karen memes for the first time and found them confusing and horrifying, especially the use of Karen as shorthand for a racist. I basically just declined to talk about it with Stephanie because it went so poorly last time, but both my mother and her mother have hounded me about it because it's upsetting to Stephanie and said things like, "Is this what you were talking about before? Why didn't you say so? Why didn't you explain it better? You should have told Stephanie." And Jesus wept. You really can't win. Thanks again for all your feedback on my last post. It was very helpful in giving me some zen about the situation. Edit. Wow, I've been super overwhelmed by the flood of very kind, heartfelt PMs and just 1 or 2 not so kind ones, as well as the comments on my other post. Thank you, everyone. It continually amazes me how many nice and empathetic people frequent a sub devoted to. Additional comments from OP for context. In response to someone criticizing Stephanie. To be fair, Stephanie has been cool about it. First, she saw a bunch of posts about the Central Park Karen when that white lady was harassing the black birdwatcher in the park, and came to me asking me to explain why everyone was calling the woman Karen when her name was Amy, since she's gone back on Facebook. She often asked me to be like her internet culture interpreter. I immediately told her, "Sorry, I'm not having conversation with you about this because we had a major conflict over it last year, and I'm not getting into it with you." I think that was the first time she started to understand what I've been telling her last year, and in fairness to her, she didn't bring it up with me again after that. As for my mom and aunt, they're kind of generally ridiculous. They tend to be extremely reactive to whatever is going on precisely at the moment, and if someone in the family is upset, They get over-involved trying to fix it. Stephanie has been venting to her mom about this. Not about me, just how upsetting the memes are. And she and my mom have just been doing their normal thing of blowing it out of proportion and now making it my fault somehow. I love my mom and aunt dearly, but they're not to be reasoned with. In response to another criticism of Stephanie, honestly, with my mom and aunt, it's easier to just wait for them to move on to the next shiny thing. I don't blame Stephanie at all. She's just upset and confused, but hasn't made it my problem at all. My aunt and mom just have a flair for the dramatic. In response to someone saying they still thought Opie was TA because they only brought up concerns with the name for selfish reasons. I probably wasn't clear about this in my original post, and I think it's probably because that's the part 1 cut down when I went way over the word limit on that first post. But when I described feeling weird and uncomfortable over the couple of days I took to ruminate after Stephanie's announcement, the weirdness and discomfort was mostly a response to what happened with our friend group rather than just my own feelings about the name. I felt super uncomfortable being in the room while our friends talked Stephanie's name choice after praising it to her face. I didn't have the presence of mind to call them out before the moment passed, and I sat with that guilt for a couple of days. I didn't want to tell Stephanie what they said because it would be tattly of me, and I also didn't want to cause conflict within the friend group or upset Stephanie. So raising the topic on my own seemed like a good compromise at the time. I did wrestle internally with how to handle it, and clearly I missed the mark. In response to the comment, do you understand that there is a massive difference in being upset with your friends for their response and approaching Stephanie because you say you want her to be fully informed of her name choice? These are two different things that you're conflating. No, to be clear, I didn't raise the conversation with Stephanie in lieu of scolding our friends. I brought it up because I thought they owed it to her to raise those points to her face if they were going to say them at all. Ultimately, I thought Stephanie was owed the knowledge of those connotations, whatever she chose to do with that knowledge. Also, I don't know how to explain the context of our relationship, but Stephanie and I have a lifetime of shared radical honesty with one another, from the inconsequential, telling each other when outfits are unflattering, to the difficult, when she gave me a come-to-Jesus talk years ago about how someone I considered a close friend was super shitty to me and that I should end the friendship. Based on our extreme closeness and shared history, this conversation felt like the right move at the time, even though it ultimately backfired. Update 2, hi all. I've gotten a few PMs over the last couple years asking for updates, and since we just celebrated Karen's 3rd birthday, I wanted to circle back to anyone following this story. First of all, baby Karen, not so much a baby anymore, is doing amazingly on her developmental milestones. She's a very bright child, sharp as the sharpest tack, and extremely tuned into her environment. Some of what she says is already fully incomplete sentences, which just makes me want to cry when I hear it, because it seems like Stephanie was giving birth just yesterday. Karen loves books already and will intently study the pictures in them for huge stretches of time and claim to be reading. And you would not believe the uncomfortably incisive questions she's already asking. I am fully convinced this child is going to grow up to be an actual genius. Regarding the name, unfortunately, when Karen started daycare earlier this year, she started getting grief for her name pretty quickly from the older kids. The daycare she attends mixes the ages together at a couple of different points throughout the day. And while there fortunately wasn't much direct bullying, 2 of the age 5s must have heard and internalized the derogatory connotations of the name Karen at home. As a result, they found her name absolutely hysterical, and they kind of spread the idea to the other kids that there was something funny/wrong about her name. Karen was too little to understand what was happening, but found the other kids' behavior toward her generally upsetting. The daycare staff made every effort to shut it down and let Stephanie and her husband know right away. After about a month of this, where the daycare wasn't having much success putting the kibosh on this behavior and the kids weren't dropping it, Stephanie and her husband made the decision that Karen will be going by Carrie from now on, which was already an established nickname that a lot of family and friends were already using and that Karen already recognized as referring to herself. Stephanie and I never really fully revisited what happened during her pregnancy, but when she was telling me about what was happening in daycare, she apologized to me. I immediately felt terrible and reassured her there was no reason to apologize. Emotions are complicated when you're pregnant, and that I thought having Karen go by Carrie was a great solution. Though changing what you're used to calling someone is hard, I found, and I'm still directly addressing her on manual mode every single time. A lot of the responses I got in my last post were gleeful and leaned into the schadenfreude of the situation, and I have to say those responses really bummed me out. I would much rather live in a world where I was wrong about the impact Karen's name would have on her. I cannot emphasize enough what a sweet-dispositioned, smart, curious, loving little girl Carrie is, and how much she deserves every good thing in life. Also, a lot of people didn't like Stephanie in my last post, but I need you to understand that this is a tiny snapshot of a very emotionally high-strung time in her life, and overall, Stephanie is a wonderful lifelong friend. She has got me through so many personal crises over the years, and she will never fail to show up for the people she cares about. Being pregnant and having a strong emotional attachment to the name you've picked out for your daughter is completely understandable. And her pregnancy was pretty rough on her moods. She once wept uncontrollably at a cat food commercial when she was about 7 months pregnant. I also think my approach for trying to explain the name issue those years ago was very clumsy, and I could have done a better job of bringing it up. That said, with the distance of time, I'm really glad I broached the topic. I feel like I owed Stephanie that information, and I can feel good about giving it to her. If I'd chosen not to bring it up at the time, I think I'd have a lot of regrets now. The only thing I'd change now, looking back, is that I would try to bring it up more gently somehow with Stephanie, so I could have had the chance to explain. In summary, all is well. We've run into a little bump in the road with other kids' reactions to Karen's name, but in some ways it's better to get this out of the way now, when Carrie doesn't really understand what's happening, than have this happen in kindergarten or elementary school down the road, when full-on bullying could be a risk. She's adjusting really well to going by her nickname full-time, and Stephanie and her husband are planning on enrolling her with Carrie as her preferred name in all future schooling. And since schools around here go by preferred name rather than legal name in things like classroom roll calls, it's possible she can get through K-12 without it ever really being widely known among her peers that her legal name is Karen. And I really hope this common usage of the name Karen dies down in the next few years. Edit. Really disappointed to be getting hate messages directed at Carrie, wishing that terrible things befall her and calling her the C word. Please remember, she's an innocent child. Edit 2. Point of clarification. The boys at daycare apparently didn't know that Karen was a name. The way they'd heard it used at home made them think it was just a term used to insult people and that it might be a bad word. That's why they found it so funny, because in their worldview, it was like meeting someone named Fart Face or another made-up silly name. The daycare staff explained to them that Karen is a real name and that lots of people are named Karen, and of course they tried their best to curtail the mockery, but nothing really helped until the name change and a little bit of time had passed. Things at the daycare are now back to normal. The other kids are calling her Carrie, and everyone has fortunately moved on. Edit 3. Please don't harass Redditors who gave a YTA judgment on my first post. They gave their honest judgment at the time in an online space specifically set up for the purpose. I didn't post on an advice sub, I posted on a judgment sub, and there's no reason to call people to the mat for judgments I asked for, made in good faith from 3 years ago. A comment defending Stephanie in response to someone commenting that she's a bad friend to OP. Stephanie is genuinely a great friend and a good person. She once dropped everything and drove 300 miles because I had just been in a relatively minor car accident in a city I lived all alone in as a young adult. She once gifted me $1,500, no questions asked, and insisted I never even think about paying it back when I needed to get out of a really bad cohabiting situation while broke. When we were teenagers, and the cool boy she had a massive crush on made fun of me for something I was extremely sensitive about. Instead of keeping quiet, she blew her top, stuck up for me, and told him off, then led me away to comfort me away from him. She is loyal and kind, and has incredible character. This post is such a tiny snapshot of who she is as a person. When I raised my concerns, Stephanie was emotional, very pregnant, and somewhat sleep-deprived. Her pregnancy was rough on her body, and on top of hormones, I think she was just genuinely confused by what I was trying to tell her. Update 3. For those of you who have contacted me asking for an update, I wanted to circle back and close the book on the baby Karen/Carrie chapter. As of last month, Carrie is now legally Caroline, last name, and she has even been issued a new birth certificate with her new legal name. The daycare bullying issues had already died down since Stephanie and her husband switched to calling her Carrie, but this legal name change now means that the Karen issue won't crop up again when she starts school. There were also some other mini incidents that pushed Stephanie and her husband to make that decision around a legal name change. They were getting to the point where almost any time they were having to provide Karen's legal name to get a service, they were getting an immediate reaction, even from adults. It was usually just a meaningful look, but barbed comments were not unusual. The final straw was when they were at the airport getting ready to fly to visit Stephanie's in-laws with Carrie. The TSA agent at security made a snarky comment, and then later when they needed to ask the gate agent about their seats, the gate agent rudely laughed at seeing Carrie's ticket, then showed the gate agent standing next to her, who just shook her head and said, "Poor kid," to her coworker while fully ignoring Stephanie and her husband. And they had this interaction in front of Carrie. Something about that day in the airport was a turning point for Stephanie and her husband, and they started the name change process as soon as they got home. It was much easier than they were expecting and cost a grand total of $30. Carrie is a joyful, sociable little girl, and while it's impossible to know right now if these negative experiences caused any lasting damage, and I sincerely hope they did not, I'm happy to see that she continues to be a very outgoing, confident child. The conversation with Stephanie I mentioned in my October update was awkward and brief, but we've actually gotten back into it a few times since. Stephanie has apologized profusely for her initial reaction when we first talked. I've apologized for approaching things so poorly and not telling her right away about what our friend was saying behind her back. And in those conversations, we mainly ended up focusing on the resulting spiraling of my mom and aunt and what a mess that turned into. Together, we started to unpack some of the intergenerational trauma around our family issues. To provide some of that context, our maternal grandparents were a nightmare. Our grandfather was an authoritarian revivalist preacher who was physically abusive and referred to himself as the spiritual leader and ultimate authority of the family. Our grandmother was a manipulative narcissist who psychologically tormented my mom and aunt for their entire childhoods. As a result, my mom and aunt trauma bonded considerably during their childhood and grew into extremely anxious and reactive adults. Any whiff of conflict sends them into panic mode. And in our family, we have these well-worn grooves of behavioral habits with my mom and aunt overreacting to anything that feels like discord and scrambling to clumsily smooth things over. As a result, Stephanie and I have both been working hard to build better boundaries with our mom's generation and have agreed to be really cautious about what information we give them, especially anything that is highly emotional. I've been in therapy for a couple of years now, and Stephanie also started therapy late last year. We've been talking about the ways that my grandparents traumatizing our moms caused intergenerational issues that impacted us. And Stephanie is determined that the cycle ends with her and that these issues will not go on to touch Carrie. Thank you everyone for your kind words, both here on my profile posts and on the Best of Updates reposts, which I've also been reading. I've gotten some incredibly thoughtful and kind messages, which have meant a lot to me, even if I haven't had the chance to respond to all of them. For those who may still want to be critical of Stephanie, I again want to emphasize how out of character her initial reaction was and how much physical, hormonal, and emotional upheaval she was in at the time. These posts are a teeny tiny window into just one aspect of the dynamic, funny, kind, caring, full human being that is my cousin and best friend. Stephanie has been my most loyal and trusted friend for pretty much my entire life, and she has fully earned some grace for reacting less than perfectly to my extremely clumsy approach when she was sleep-deprived, hormonally wrecked, and brain-fogged. Stephanie has read these posts now as well, along with most of your comments, and after I explained to her what Reddit is, they were helpful to both of us in our talks about our weird family dynamic. I can't imagine I'll have any more updates down the line, but thanks for following along the last few years. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Asked my GF for childhood photos for a gift project but found a hidden video of her with our close friend. She broke down crying, said she deleted it years ago. I've been in a relationship with Kat, F26, for a little over 2 years, extremely satisfied with the relationship. She's just what I didn't know I needed. Small arguments here and there, but the kind that gets sorted with a talk or 2 hours after, once we both cool down a bit. She really liked a photo montage I did of our vacation, so I was thinking on doing one from since she was born until the first photo we will take when she moves in with me in February, when her lease will end. For that, I needed old photos of her, so I asked her, saying it was for a project. She gave me an external HD, said the folder marked memories would be filled with all her photos, but they would be out of order, and that there would be photos with her ex-BF from a summer trip they did overseas that she kept for the memories of the trip itself. Yesterday, I sat down to start checking the photos. There are a lot of them, and they're all out of a specific order, so I was just picking at random. As I was scrolling down, I saw a folder in the middle of the images. Weird name, it had a few brackets and random numbers with letters, but showed it had content in it. I opened it, 2 images and 1 video. The images were a screenshot of some shoes on a shopping app, and a selfie with a thumb covering half the lens. Then I get the video, short, 53 seconds. First 7 or 8 seconds is someone fumbling with what I expect to be a phone. Then the camera moves down, and it is Kat back naked. With the movements and sounds, it is obvious that this is her having sex with someone. To be clear, this is not proof of cheating. She has a back tattoo to which she has been adding through the years. On the video, it is less complete than when I met her, and her hair is very short. Checking by other photos, I would say she was either 18 or 19 years old at the time. Now, we both know that neither of us was a virgin when we met. Still, it is a little bit unsettling to me to get that knowledge imprinted on my brain with visual aids. OFC, she's not doing anything wrong. But there are 3 things running wild on my mind. First, she was wearing what I can only describe as croc-L panties with a bunny tail to the side. At one point, I could see what it looked like, a small whip, similar to what the jockeys use. She never showed any inclination for this kind of thing with me. But what is really bothering is that at one point, I can see that her right wrist has a handcuff, the kind with fluffy pink hair around, with the other handcuff open at the side. This is bothering me because she absolutely hates to be held in any way by her wrists. First time I did it during sex, she literally tensed and froze on the spot, to the point that I stopped what I was doing to check on her. She told me to never do it again. I actually told her to give me a safe word that night, so that if I ever did something that she wasn't comfortable, just say the word and I stop. Fortunately, never had to use it to this day. Now my mind is trying to make sense of it, and I'm getting concerned that she doesn't trust me for some reason, at least not to the point she seems to have trusted this guy. Second, the existence of the video itself. She loves taking photos, but nothing overly sexual, just some sexy outfits, but even those aren't what I would call too much skin. She is actually pretty flirty and sometimes inappropriate when texting or speaking over the phone. But she told me once to forget any nudes or videos. She won't send them nor let me take them. Really don't mind. I'd rather see everything live. And now I see a video. Third, and what is bothering the most, I'm almost 100% sure the guy is a friend of hers, Mark, M26. At the end of the video, when he goes to shut the recording, he pointed the camera to his wrist. There's a tattoo there that is the same as Mark's. I highly doubt she met 2 guys with the same tattoo in the same place. And they have been friends since first year of college, so it matches the time frame. This is not someone that I'm going to say, oh, they are BFF. They're always together, spend time alone in their apartments. They see each other maybe once a month, when their group gathers for dinner or drinks. I actually go with her more often than not. I've been going crazy trying to replay their interactions, looking for any signs that I may have missed of something other than friendship, but honestly, I'm coming up empty. He also has a GF, and he looks at her the same way I look at mine. I don't expect Kat to tell me every hookup and relationship she had in the past. But with someone that she sees with some regularity, I would expect a heads up of some sort, especially because it seems more than just a casual thing looking at the all setup. This is driving me mad. My actual brain knows she has done nothing wrong and that I'm probably overreacting. But my body stress response right now is through the roof. I know that I'll need to speak to her tomorrow before I let this pen up more. Already had a bad night's sleep tonight. I don't expect it to be better. And I'm concerned that having this conversation without a clear mind may actually cause issues that I really don't want to have. And honestly, I'm a bit scared to go deeper into this rabbit hole. Jesus, what a rant this has become. Sorry for the wall of text. Seems I had more to vent than I thought. How do I approach this conversation tomorrow? Edit. Now, maybe my English isn't as good as I hoped, because I honestly do not understand the amount of people with the idea that I want to do BDSM with my GF and that I'm salty about she doing it with someone else. Never did. It is not something I could see enjoying, so I would only do it to an extent if I was asked. My issue is if she is interested in this. Why hasn't she approached the subject in a 2-year relationship? And it doesn't help the matter that this doesn't seem to be an ex, but one of her friends, which either is in fact an ex, and she hid that from me when we talked about past relationships in the beginning of our own, or had a FWB situation, or whatever else happened. There's the not having context to the video that is causing my mind spinning, and that is why I need to speak with her before the dam burst. And that is why I reached out for advice to at least not making this shit worse than it already is. And no, I didn't go through her phone to get pictures. I asked her for pictures. She gave an external HD and told me in which folder to get them. The HD had other folders. I didn't open them. The video was inside a strangely named folder inside the memories folder. I'm talking to her tonight after she comes back from work. She already knows something is not right. I couldn't sleep yesterday, and she came back to see why I wasn't in bed that late. This morning she checked on me. You are not yourself the last 2 days. Is there something going on? I just told her that I'm feeling stressed without an apparent reason and not to worry. No point on a conversation before she leaves for work. Can't say that I'll update this today after we talk, as I don't think I'll have the mind for that. But I guess I'll eventually say something. For now, I'm going offline. Update 1, November 2nd, 2024. Some people had asked for an update, so I guess this will be it. I'd like to thank to all the people that gave actual advice on what I asked on my post, instead of judging me for whatever reason they found worthy of judgment. The advice of listening to her instead of turning the conversation into an interrogation that was pointed to me by several people prevented me to actually complicate our talk. The original post was long. This update might be a bit as well. She read this before I posted, so all I've written was with her consent. Got a call from an old friend of mine to check up on me because my GF had called him worried about my behavior the last 2 days. When I said that it was something that I would need to talk to her, he said, "That is fine. Just remember that Kat is not Mary, an ex of mine. Don't bring that baggage with you. If you have an issue, talk it out, but don't put on your GF someone else's blank." It was like a light switch that flipped. I had been so freaked out that didn't even realize that a lot of what I was feeling was past trauma that was being brought up front and boosting my reactions, basically afraid of going through something similar again. When she got home, she was already wanting to speak with me. I told her that if she wanted to take a shower, I would make some tea and we would talk. I told her that I loved her. I wasn't accusing her of anything or mad at her. I was going through something, and she was the only one I could speak that could help me move past it, that I needed her to be honest and not try to hide things from me. Once she agreed, I just asked, when you gave me the external HD for me to get those photos, were you aware that there's a video in there of you and someone that I think is Mark having sex? That is not possible. I deleted it years ago. That is what she said before breaking down in tears. She hugged me. I hugged back by instinct mostly. In between the sobbing and crying, she begged me to not get mad and let her explain. I repeated that I wasn't mad. I would hear what she wanted to say. She just needed to be honest with me. Once she calmed down, she told me that it happened around 3 weeks after her 19th birthday. She had broken up with her high school BF about 2 months prior. They were both pretty drunk, hanging out at her apartment living room after a night out, and things just escalated into physical. She said that in the next morning, they both felt extremely self-conscious about the all thing. Mark was really freaked out that she might think he had taken advantage of her because she had a recent breakup. She was concerned that Mark had feelings for her because she only saw him as a friend. They ended up agreeing that it was a drunken hookup that none of them wanted to follow up on. At one point, Mark asked her if she remembered making a video. They checked both their phones, and there was a video and photo on her phone that she deleted. Then she never saw them again and believed them to be gone. According to her, they even avoided each other for the next couple of months because of the awkwardness, and nothing else happened. I had been watching her while she spoke. She kept eye contact while speaking, seemed tense, but nothing unexpected. All in all, I saw no reason not to believe her. The handcuffs and all, joke birthday gift from her girlfriends. It just happened to be there when they went to the room, and they thought it would be fun to open the set. We only talked about this yesterday. At the time, I had other more pressing questions. As for not telling me in the first place, when she started dating her ex, Mark was out of the country, so she never mentioned that happening to her ex. When Mark came back, her ex was already showing signs of being jealous and controlling without much reason, so she decided not to throw gasoline into the fire. Mark started dating a girl and mentioned that they had been together once a long time ago because she asked. His GF told her EXPBF in the middle of a group outing. Her ex exploded. She ended up breaking up with him. Things went a bit out of control, to the verge of harassment/stalking. Mark's relationship imploded sometime later because the girl saw Kat breaking up with her ex as proof that she has feelings for you, and became a bit crazy. She never told me because in the beginning, she wasn't sure how I would react and was afraid I went her ex path, and by the time she figured I wouldn't go that path, it had been so long that she just let it go. She apologized, admitted that was a bad call on her part and should have told me, and let me decide how comfortable I was with it. When she spoke about her ex being abusive, I gently asked if he was the reason for her issue with being held by the wrists. He wasn't. He was verbally and psychologically abusive, but was never physical. It was someone else, after she broke up with her ex, someone that belonged to her friends group. Apparently, he had a secret crush on her, was drunk at a party. They were alone in a small balcony, and she friend-zoned him when he proposed. He got close. She placed her hands on his chest to try and stop him, and he held her by the wrists and pinned her against the wall. One of her friends saw it through the window and helped. The guy was cut off by the friends group, and last time she knew, he left to work somewhere else. Still, she was aware that if they were alone, it might have been a lot worse, and when I did it to her, it was just a response to the memory. Also, this actually explains some behaviors of hers when we started dating. She looked like she needed time to make sure she was comfortable to be alone with me. Now, I know why. After this, I was drained. Well, I guess anyone that actually read this far will be as well. I went silent for a good while, just replaying everything. She came to me, held my hands, and apologized again. Said she couldn't make what I saw disappear, but it was really in the past, and she just needed me to tell her what else she could do to make things easier for me. Honestly, at that point, my brain was shot. Then she did something that caught me completely off guard. She called Mark on the phone, placed him on loudspeaker while motioning me to be quiet, and asked him if he could speak or was close to his GF. His reply was to me, he said, "That is an odd thing to ask. I'm alone. Is something wrong?" She told him that I had seen the video. Basically, the entirety of the conversation confirmed everything she told me. I didn't say anything, so he didn't know I was listening. After freaking out with, "I saw you delete that shit," he referred to it as a one-time meaningless thing and a drunk hookup that keeps coming back to haunt us. Was also worried that I would tell his GF like my crazy ex. So, after all this, she asked me if I needed space. But I told her I wanted her near. If she didn't want to be with me in bed, I could sleep in my study, but she wanted to be close as well. We spent yesterday together, didn't go to the party as it was planned, talked, and just kept each other close. She and Mark will take a break on their friendship. He told his GF, which took it better than me, but they decided some distance is better at this point. My GF also offered to only go out with the group with me present, regardless of Mark being there or not. Other than that, I just asked her to give me some time and to not try and initiate sex for now. I want to be completely clear-minded and release this stress that built up before that. This is it. Going to take some time, but I feel that I have the ground under my feet, so I'm optimistic. I think that now, after talking it out, I just need a bit of time to let it settle. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Here is the formatted text with appropriate punctuation and paragraph separation, without changing any words or phrases. Best friend kicked me out because his girlfriend of 7 months told him to, but I came back after realizing my rights as a tenant. Now he wants to break up with her. So I, 21F, have been friends with 21M Mike, fake name, for 16 years. We became friends officially in kindergarten, but our parents were college friends. I honestly can't even call him a best friend. He's like a sibling, and in a way, we were raised as siblings. Group family holidays, sleepovers, family vacations on both sides. At one point, we even all lived together for a year. I'm saying this because I know some people will ask. No, there's been no crushes or feelings on either side at all. We haven't kissed, confessed feelings, or had crushes. It's been strictly sibling-like, and I'm saying that now because of what Mike's girlfriend has been saying. Me and Mike share an apartment together near campus as we both attend college together. Around 7 months ago, Mike met his girlfriend, 21F April, fake name. Now, I thought we got along okay. I've only met her a couple of times because she has anxiety, but I had no problem at all with her until recently, besides some minor things. Sometimes she would interject when Mike would call me his sister. It wasn't always, but normally like, well, technically you aren't siblings, which is 100% true, but it's how we viewed each other since we were kids. So almost a month ago, my class got canceled, so I came home early. I walk in, and right on the couch are Mike and April having sex. I scream, run to my room, and frantically yell at Mike via text. He apologized, said he thought I would be gone longer. I made him clean the couch. All good, right? No. April, for some reason, got upset and felt that, in her words, I did that on purpose, despite it never happening before, and that it was inappropriate of me to walk in on them. Again, this was in the living room, absolutely disgusting in my opinion, but I moved on because it's not a big deal. Embarrassing, but nothing crazy. Anyway, Mike has been stressed recently because April had been asking him a distance from me. I thought she was just embarrassed, which I'd understand, so I tried being friendly and apologized. Well, last weekend, Mike sat me down and basically said that I had to move out because his girlfriend was upset with me living with him. I was floored. I got so upset, I don't think I've yelled and cried that much in my life. The basics is that he doesn't want me to, but he's pressured from his girlfriend, and he really loves her, so he wants to make her happy. He thinks that this shouldn't change our friendship, and that he's just putting some distance between us. See, if he had asked me to move out, I'd understand. Okay, yeah, maybe you want to take your relationship to the next level. Okay, but it was a demand. And not only that, he wanted to put space between our friendship. It was so hurtful. I've known him for 16 years, and that's it. I'm gone for someone he's known for 7 months. I said he was choosing a short relationship over his sister, and that I don't want him to contact me if he's going to be like that. He said I was overreacting, but I called my parents and got them to pick me up. Literally. Thank God they don't live far away. But like, what if they did? What did he expect me to do? Just sleep outside or something? Anyway, I obviously had to tell my parents what was going on, given they had to pick me up, and I was an emotional mess. I told them everything, which caused a bit of an argument when they went to pick up some of my things the next day. They called Mike's parents and kind of chewed them out a little, and from my understanding, they called Mike and did the same. Mike messaged me to say that he was upset, I couldn't be civil, and that he feels like I am throwing away a friendship. I blocked him shortly after. I've taken some time off classes, but I'm so hurt and upset. It hurts that he could just throw me away so easily. I don't think I did anything wrong telling my parents, but I think it may have crossed a line when they phoned Mike's parents. Like I said previously, our parents are really close, and it's kind of messed with their friendship now. His parents have been really kind and apologetic, even though it's not their fault, and a part of me feels like I made this into a bigger mess. Sorry if it's a bit chaotic. I'm on phone and still a bit emotional. Also, I know I didn't have to leave. Me and Mike both pay an equal amount of rent for the apartment, but I didn't want to stay in a place that I wasn't wanted. It would have just made it difficult, and worst case scenario, he'd leave, which would have put a financial strain on me. Edit. I read you all loud and clear. Thank you for waking my ass up. I've talked to my landlord. She said that she was uncomfortable with April moving in because she doesn't know her. I understood, so I'm moving my ass back tomorrow. I unblocked Mike and informed him. I explained that until our landlord says otherwise, I'm staying. Either he can leave and get a new place and keep paying the rent, or we can end our agreement together, and if our landlord agrees, they can start one. He replied, okay, we can talk about it tomorrow. So we see. Thank you all so much for getting me up and going. I really had no idea how serious this situation could be until you all let me know how stupid I was being. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. I'm not wasting my money. Comments. Oop replying to a downvoted commenter. Is she approved? And may he hear this is insane to me. Yeah, it was disgusting. I screamed when I saw it because it was gross, not because they were having sex. I'm 21 years old. It's gross because he's like a brother on the couch I paid for in front of me. It was nasty to see. I don't care what was going on. Take it to the bedroom. And again, they've been dating for 7 months. This isn't the first time we obviously have a system, one that he didn't abide by. I'm sorry, but acting like I'm weird for being upset that they were in our public space is so weird to me. I sit in that space. I use it too. No reason they couldn't take it to the bedroom. If they can't live with spontaneous sex, then boohoo, they can move out. Easy and simple solution. I don't understand why I have to be uncomfortable so that they can be happy. I'm sorry. I appreciate all comments made because it gives me a better insight, but this one is so weird to me. I'm a problem because I don't want them on my furniture. Oh, okay. Update 1, July 26th, 2024. Thank you all for the amazing advice. I was hesitant to even upload here, but I'm really glad I did. I honestly can't believe how naive I was, and you all probably saved me a lot of trouble. So, on to the update. I came back to the apartment yesterday morning. I let Mike know beforehand and asked if April not be there so we could talk alone. Mike was quite emotional and apologetic, which surprised me a little. I found out a bit more information that makes a bit more sense now. Mike has been under a lot of pressure for a while now to drop me. He thought that me moving out and distancing himself would be enough to appease April while still keeping our friendship. Obviously, he didn't expect me to take it the way I did, but what other way would I take it? And he didn't expect me to leave that day. I mean, he didn't specifically say, pack your and leave now, but saying you need to leave and saying that he wanted distance over our 16-year relationship out of nowhere makes me feel like I couldn't have just gone to bed normally, you know? I've read everyone's comments so many times, I've drilled it into my head. So as much as it hurts, I'm keeping my distance from Mike at the moment. The fact that he never once told me about April wanting him to not talk to me, and he didn't even consider my circumstances before asking me to leave. Where else could I go? It's not a definite end of our friendship, but I'm not feeling pretty positive. Anyway, he's apologized. He said that he missed me while I was gone, and that he knew after he told me to leave, but that he just wanted to make April happy since he could see a future with her. April has lost her, to put it mildly, and she threw up a storm in the lobby of our apartment last night. Mike refused to let her in, which understandably made her lose her even more. Tons of colorful words thrown about on both ends. I'm a home wrecker, a whore, which is laughable anyway. She's not to be allowed into our apartment now. Period. At least until he decides on their relationship. Mike has been pretty upset today. He wants space from April because he said that he wants to end the relationship. Very surprising, but I'm cautiously optimistic since I'm not sure how willing he'll be. We've had a bit of a heart-to-heart. Regardless of how upset and hurt I am, he's my brother. I'm trying to be like I wanted when I moved back in, but it's so hard when he's all mopey and sad. I told him that if he continues seeing her, I'm putting some distance between us, respectfully, to avoid this happening again. He said he doesn't want that. I talked with my landlord before moving back. She didn't want April moving in as she doesn't know her. She was a bit upset that this situation was happening as she didn't want drama, which I understand. I've moved back and I've discussed the lease with Mike. We renew in September, or that was the plan. So now we're deciding on how to go ahead. I feel like it'll be best for me to get my own place. Maybe this was long overdue. To be honest, although Mike is saying that he wants us to continue being roommates next year. So we're discussing this at the moment. It's not really a super dramatic update, but at least the leasing issue has been solved. I'm not being kicked out or leaving until our lease is done. April isn't coming over for the foreseeable future. Only issue right now is my relationship with Mike. It's very awkward in the apartment. You can tell something's changed. He's been trying to be friendly like we were before all of this, and he's apologized a lot, which I appreciate, but I'm finding it a bit difficult to move on and go back to normal. I'm not being or mean, just slightly distant. Anyway, that's the update. I really want to thank you all again for making me realize how serious this could be. I honestly had no idea that you couldn't just switch who was renting, which is so embarrassing. Also, to that one woman in my DMs and comments spam messaging me, you're insane. I don't know who hurt you, but get a life, please. This isn't even that serious. Comments. Comment 1. Mike needs to learn to drop anyone who tries to come between him and a healthy familial relationship. As a mom, I like you two being roommates because you're less likely to have trouble with aggressive men. I'm a girl mom, and think of these things. For Mike, it's a great way to judge is the woman he is dating is psycho. Opie. Honestly, that was one of the main reasons why we moved in together when we started college. Mike and my family was worried about me having a place to myself, and Mike's parents wanted me to keep an eye on him. Comment 2. Did Mike break down and explain how he changed from seeing a future with her to wants to end the relationship? Understanding his reasoning process may help to rebuild trust and demonstrate maturing of Mike. Was it the tantrum damage to the friendship damage to the relationship with his parents and her parents? If he was older and wiser, I think the insecurity of April, the inability to communicate, negotiate, and resolve conflict would be relationship red flags. Opie. He said that it was the few days that I was gone and had him blocked that it put into perspective how much he missed me and that he imagined the next 30 years of his life like this. I'm not entirely sure. Even I was surprised by the switch up because even I thought that there would be drama between us when I came back. Comment 3. Why Oop and Mike aren't together? Opie. Because me and Mike don't view each other like that. It's really just that simple. I see a lot of people asking the same thing. At the very least, he's like a step-sibling, at most a brother to me. Nothing has happened between either of us, and it never will. It's so confusing why some people aren't getting that. No, as far as I know, it hasn't, although there's only been 2 other relationships before April. They both ended on pretty good terms, and none of them had issues with me. I can maybe see our relationship being taken the wrong way as we are affectionate, but again, siblings. If I had a brother or sister, it's the same type of affection I'd show them. Now on to the next story. Story 6. I found a tampon in my husband's car, then another in our bedroom. Our toddler suddenly had new clothes I didn't buy. So, I finally thought he was cheating. I, 29F, have been with my husband, 30M, for 7 years, married for 4. I've never had reason to suspect he was unfaithful to me or even remotely dissatisfied with our marriage. He likes to joke that we're still living the honeymoon phase, nearly 5 years and 2 kids in. I wouldn't have questioned that or him were it not for a surprise I found in his car last month. When buckling our daughter into her car seat, I noticed something slotted between the cushions. I pulled it out and saw that it was a tampon. This wouldn't have been so unusual had I not had an IUD that has stopped my period for the past year, and I didn't even recognize the wrapper style. I brought it to my husband's attention, and he didn't seem to understand what it was, let alone why I was holding it, until I told him where I'd found it and why I was almost certain it wasn't mine. He shrugged and said it probably belonged to his co-worker, Fiona. It's not uncommon for my husband to carpool to lunch with his co-workers, and we're both fairly close to Fiona and her husband. So, I figured it was entirely possible the tampon had slipped out of her purse whenever he had driven with them or offered her a ride. No big deal. I put it out of my mind until we had dinner with Fiona and her husband a couple of weeks later. I had sincerely wanted to believe my husband. I just couldn't get over the way it had been tucked in the seat and how my husband had seemed not to have any regard for it whatsoever. Maybe playing dumb, I don't know. I did something that I now feel kind of crazy for doing. I faked an emergency and asked Fiona if she had any tampons while we were out together. She handed me one almost identical to the tampon I'd found in our back seat, and I breathed a sigh of relief. So the tampon, there was probably the same tampon here, and, in all likelihood, there was an innocent explanation as to why it had been left in the back seat in the first place. I thought I'd seen the last of the out-of-place feminine hygiene products until I found another tampon this morning, this time in my sock drawer. I feel physically ill at the thought of my husband having an affair, and even more nauseated at the thought that the woman might have left these tampons out for me to find. If it was my husband's co-worker, why would she give herself away by offering me one the other night? In any other situation, I want to talk to my husband about this, but I feel too sick and embarrassed to approach him with what I found. What should I do? Comments. I've had a period 30 years, and never put a tampon in a sock drawer. Trust your gut and get cameras. Neither have I. I've considered so many explanations for the tampons that wouldn't implicate my husband, but none of them make sense, really. I'm terrified to set up a camera if it means confirming what I suspect. Right now, has Fiona been over to your house and had time to plant the tampon? She's been to our house many times and vice versa. To my knowledge, she wasn't over any time in the past week. So if she planted that second tampon, she had to have found a window of time when I wasn't home. Anytime she and her husband visit, we all stay downstairs, and you'd have to go really out of your way to make it to our bedroom, around our dogs, over the safety gate, past the other bedrooms. Not saying it's impossible, but definitely tricky to do on a quick bath break, I would guess. How old are your kids? Could they have found a tampon and put it in a random place? 2 and almost 4. Both have a mischievous streak, so I didn't want to rule out the possibility of one of them moving stuff around, but I can't imagine how they'd get their hands on one, possibly 2 random tampons that I never bought. Update 1, September 20th, 2023. Contemplating every possible source of 2 tampons has been my personal hell for the past few weeks, but I wanted to share an update. Shortly after posting on here, I told my sister what happened. The tampon in the back seat and the sock drawer, my husband's cluelessness, the tampon from Fiona, and all the things I suspected but didn't want to believe. We compared tampons, save for the back seat one I had already discarded, and they were a match, just in different absorbencies. I hadn't left either in a place where my husband or daughters would have found them and moved them around. My daughters didn't know what they were or where they had come from. My sister was convinced it was Fiona, either with my husband, with me, or both. Direct confrontation of either party still seemed like a bad idea, so she suggested inviting Fiona and her husband over for our Labor Day barbecue. Unfortunately, they already had plans. My sister and I agreed that it was too soon for cameras without any other evidence, so it was just a waiting game from there. Watching my husband for any changed behavior, there was none. Our house for any misplaced/foreign items, there were none, and even the girls for any new friend they might have met. My sister's husband was adamant on this last point, and partly why he was inclined to believe that the tampons were harmless. If anything had been happening in or around our home, he said it would be nearly impossible to keep it from me and the girls, since my husband was the one taking them to and from daycare and most other activities during the week. I felt a good bit of consolation in that. It wasn't until my younger daughter, 2 years old, came down with something last week that I felt any differently. I wanted to be the one home taking care of her, but my husband insisted that I stay at work while he stayed home with her. I was okay with that. My sister and her husband figured it was a good sign that he would take the time off at a moment's notice. And at that point, we were all already beginning to put the tampon fiasco behind us. By the 3rd or 4th day, I was just happy to see a near-healthy child and a husband who was helping see her through it. Toward the end of that week, though, I came home to something strange. The toddler that I'd left that morning in an old PJ set was now dressed in a onesie I'd never seen before, with a tiny clip in her hair. I can't say I have the sharpest memory, but I have a pretty good sense of what my kids wear on a day-to-day basis, and particularly what kind of clothes they wear. I'd sworn off the full-length sleep suits with snaps across the front lawn before we'd ever had our second. The long snaps are just a pain in the ass and a no-go for efficient diaper changes. It's just not something I would dress her in, and my husband knows as much. He doesn't plan for or buy the girls' clothes, and he certainly doesn't accessorize them. So I was bewildered and kind of floored at the thought of someone around our sick child without my knowledge. I didn't think twice, and I went straight to my husband to ask if anyone had been over to see him or the girls. He seemed confused, like before, and asked me why I would think that. It had just been him and the kids all day. I asked him again if someone had so much as stopped by to say hello, and he denied it. He told me to calm down. I might have lashed out and come forward with the accusations right then and there, but our older daughter was in the room, and she sensed something was up. In a calmer voice, I asked him a 3rd time if anyone had been around our children, and my husband swore that the girls hadn't been around anyone but him. He also denied buying new clothes or doing anyone's hair. With our daughter in the room and my emotions all over the place, I decided to leave it. I couldn't make sense of it then, And it hardly seems clearer now after I've driven myself half crazy with explanations that aren't adding up. Comments. To answer a couple of questions, my 2-year-old can only string together a couple words at a time, and when I asked her about her time with Daddy or her clothes/bow, her answers are based on the cues I give her. For example, "Who gave you that pretty bow?" And she repeats "pretty bow" back to me, or "Mama/Daddy" over and over. My older daughter, almost 4, was at daycare that morning, and she can't recall anything different from that day. Doesn't remember the PJ change or the hair clip. So my guess is she was changed sometime that morning, but I'm not totally sure. I have a 45-minute commute to work, so stopping by for lunch isn't really feasible. My sister has been kind enough to leave work and drive past a few times here and there, and she hasn't seen anything out of the ordinary. We have a Ring camera at the front door, and I got the app on my phone with not ifs on. Nothing there yet. If anyone has recommendations for more discreet surveillance, I'd be open to it. I'm just the least tech-savvy person and worry another camera will be easy to detect LOL. Edit. And yes, we get our carbon monoxide detectors tested regularly. Is it possible one of the hair clips came from daycare? I could see the hair clip being a possibility, but less likely on the onesie. My younger daughter hadn't been to daycare in days, and if either of them had returned with something like that before, I would have noticed, especially since it was the kind of onesie I hate with a passion LOL. People comment that they can't wait to find out the ending to this saga. My money on the Hollywood horror ending. Hopefully dreamed up the dogs too, so I can finally stop picking up their imaginary shits and whatnot. Update 2, October 6th, 2023. After nearly losing my mind over a hair clip and a onesie, I realized I wasn't getting anywhere with the accusations and half-baked guesswork. I'd gotten so absorbed in the paranoia and misery of my situation that I wasn't sleeping, eating, or caring for myself the way I should have been, and I wasn't getting any answers. So I decided to pull the trigger on the hidden cameras and have them shipped to my sister's house, with my BIL agreeing to help with the install/setup over at mine. Before the cameras were ever delivered, though, I got my long-awaited confirmation last week. A Ring notification had alerted me to motion at the front door while I was at work. Half expecting to see a delivery person, pet, or lawn care salesman for the 15th time, you can imagine my surprise when I saw a clip of a young woman leading my daughter into the house, hand in hand, with my husband and other daughter close behind them. The girls were supposed to be in daycare and my husband at work. The woman, as far as I knew, was living 2 states away with a court order keeping her there. I immediately called my husband to ask him what this woman was doing in our house. He didn't answer, so I texted it to him. Even in his stupidity, he probably realized he had messed up by going through the front door, knew I had gotten a Ring notification, and wanted to delay the inevitable. By the 5th or 6th subsequent call, though, he did pick up. The woman on the camera was my husband's sister, as I would come to find out later. She was the likely source of both tampons, the onesie, and the bow. She is also a registered sex offender and a recovering addict who spent the better part of her adolescence and young adulthood coercing the silence of another one of my husband's family members after she had molested them. I hadn't seen or heard from her in years, and from the way my husband talked about her, I didn't expect I ever would. But here she was in our house with our children. Suffice to say, I was livid. It wasn't an affair at all, and still somehow infinitely more disgusting, knowing who it was and why all of this had been happening. Apparently, my S-Gel, fresh off another stint in rehab, had wanted to reconnect and make amends with people she'd hurt, and my husband was high on that list. My husband didn't want me to know, or worse, try and keep her from family, our children. So they'd been meeting in secret, often at our house when I was at work. They would enter through the garage of my husband's car, so the Ring camera at the front door wouldn't tip me off. She spent the night on a weekend. I had been on a business trip and slept in our bed. She babysat our girls on a night my husband told me he had dropped them off at his parents'. She bought the girls clothes and dressed my youngest in the onesie and bow that my husband had promised on his life I had dressed her in myself. My husband swore this was all in my head, the tampons, the onesie, the bow, and all the rest. He was perfectly content to watch me agonize for weeks over a woman he insisted didn't exist, shrugging off each progressively more unsettling discovery like it was news to him and telling me I was being irrational. He insinuated that I was experiencing postpartum depression 2 years after I'd given birth, for years after I'd told him that one of my biggest fears for motherhood was to suffer PPD, like my mother had with me, to not be fully present for our babies and be left with a world of guilt and regret as they grew older. He told me I wasn't sleeping enough, that I missed the girls too much, that I needed to take a step back and reevaluate the state of my mental health. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was my husband and because no other version of events made sense. Now, after a month of this mind, I have nothing to show for my trust but this pathetic situation and a lot of anger. Comment. Call the cops and a lawyer. Already on it. Believe me, we're going scorched earth with this. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Toxic sister crashed my wedding to claim my babies didn't count since I had them before marriage. What she did next was so unhinged that the police got involved. So I, 24F, got married about a week ago, and unfortunately, things went quite haywire there. Let me start right from the beginning. I have an older sister. Let's call her Stacy, 26F, and we have always had intense sibling rivalry, and I'm serious about it. We hated each other growing up because all we wanted to do was one-up each other. We never got along, and even as we grew older, we continued to loathe each other. It was all we made sure that we never outwardly showed people how much we disliked each other, but it was all there under the surface. She and I didn't talk to each other when we were living together and would only put on a show for our family members whenever they would come over. But even our parents knew that we didn't like each other, and never did they even try to fix things between us. I guess in a way that's what led to a lot of things going wrong eventually, but I'll come to that later. She moved out when she was 18 for college, and I was really relieved because that meant I could finally be myself around the house instead of constantly trying to walk on eggshells because of her. She would only come back for the holidays and brag about how great her life was since she was going to one of the best business schools in the state. I was a little jealous of her, but my only priority was to work harder than her and get into someplace better than her, which I did get to do because I got into an Ivy League school. So that was a pretty huge slap on the face for her, and I was celebrated in a much bigger way than she ever was. I thought that getting into an Ivy League school would put an end to our competition, but that didn't happen since one day she just announced that she was starting her own business, and with some help from my dad, she actually did it. Now, I don't know if it was luck or just hard work, but it took off a couple of years ago, and she moved to Japan to expand the technology aspect of her business. It was a grand success, and our parents were proud of her. That was about 2 years ago, and since then she has been living in Japan. But unfortunately, things were not really going well for me after I graduated from college, and the fact that Stacy was accomplishing so much just added salt to the wound. I'd found a job, but it was nowhere near as glamorous and satisfying as whatever she was doing, so I quit soon after I joined. That turned out to be a huge mistake, and I know it, because I should have just stayed there and worked my way up. But I was being a fool and competing with my sister when in fact I should have just been focusing on myself and my career. It was a really stupid move of me, and I regret it, but it's done now. After I quit my job, there was a phase where I was waiting for something to just fall into my lap, and when it didn't happen, I started getting depressed. It also didn't help that Stacy was doing great in her own field, and her business was something that my parents would brag about constantly. I hated it, but I couldn't even say anything without sounding bitter and jealous, even though I was feeling both of those things. I had to hide it whenever I met with my family and pretend to be happy for Stacy, because anything other than happiness was an unacceptable emotion. That was around the time that I met my husband, Jackson, 25M. I'm so glad that I did because meeting him practically changed my life. It had been about 6 months since I quit my job and had been waiting for some better opportunity to come by, but with no such luck. Like I said, I was really depressed and I was getting very frustrated with my life, so I downloaded a dating app. I wasn't exactly looking for anything. I just wanted to hook up with people and use it as an outlet to distract myself from how badly things were going for me. I was struggling to cover rent and even buy the basic necessities for myself. I had to depend on my parents for money. They would send me money every month. I also had a certain amount of money set aside from when I was working, but none of it was enough, and I was really struggling with the bills. My parents would help me out, and I would promise them every month that I would return all the money to them as soon as I was able to. I could always hear the disappointment in their voice, and it just drove me crazy because I knew that I was not doing my best, and it was very difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that at that moment, Stacy was doing far better than me, and I was a huge disappointment to my parents. So I was using dating apps and random dates with men I didn't even like much to distract myself from my feelings. And for a while, it worked. I went out on a few dates for a few weeks with men who were only interested in hooking up and nothing more. It was mostly just casual. But that changed after I matched with Jackson. He was a really interesting guy to talk to at first, and he ticked all my boxes. He had also been a straight-A student when he was in school, but after he graduated from high school, he actually went to culinary school and was working in a restaurant when he matched with me 2 years ago. He was funny, charming, and just the right amount of masculine. But at the time, I had told him that I wasn't looking for anything serious when he asked me out on a date after almost 2 weeks of talking to each other online. He told me that he was looking for something serious and was not interested in having a casual relationship. He was dating to marry. I liked the fact that he was honest and upfront about what he felt, so I decided to give it a try, not knowing what was in store for me. I went out with him after agreeing to a first date just to see how it went, and it went incredibly well. It felt like he and I had known each other for years, and I think it was pretty much the best date I had ever had in my life. We had a lot of fun, and with him, I really felt like I was not trying to prove anything, which was the first time that I had experienced that. So that was a nice change of pace from the way that I usually feel around other people. It was an easy conversation, and we just clicked. And I don't know what changed, but I decided to give our relationship a real chance. We went out on a couple more dates, but after we had been together for just 3 months, I found out that I was pregnant. The only thing that I was worried about at the time was how Jackson would react to it. Nothing else, because he already pretty much knew everything about me that he had to know within the first few weeks of our relationship. I had told him everything about myself and my family, especially the part when I'd spent my entire life competing with my sister and trying to outdo her. But being with him made me want to be a better person, a person of my own. He already knew everything about me, and I think I knew everything about him too by that point. In fact, he had been the one to push me to snap out of my depressed phase and actively start looking for a job instead of just waiting for something to come to me. So I ended up taking back my old job in the company that I quit, and I think it was one of the best decisions that I had ever made. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I didn't have a lot to worry about. By then, I had been working for almost a month, and things with Jackson were also going really well. The only thing that I was concerned about was how he would react to this, because most people would just think that it was too soon and back out of the relationship because they would get scared. But deep down, I really wanted to have the baby since it just felt right. I can't explain it in words, but I just felt ready to be a mother. And to my surprise, when I told Jackson about the pregnancy, he was actually really supportive. He told me that it was my body, so I could decide whatever I wanted to, and he would stick with me no matter what I decided to do. And when I told him that I wanted to keep the baby, there was nobody happier than him. He told me that he had actually wanted me to keep the baby because he felt like he was ready as well, even though he was young and had just been together for 3 months. He told me that he didn't want to sound crazy or come off too strong, which is why he had left it up to me. But my choice had made him the happiest man alive. We agreed that even though we were having the baby, we would wait to get to know each other better before we got married. It was decided. We went through with the pregnancy, and a couple of weeks later, we even found out that we were having twins. So that was another big surprise, but we were rolling with it. He moved in with me shortly after we found out about the pregnancy and introduced me to his parents around the same time. His parents were really sweet, and they seemed to love all the kids equally without ever forcing anybody to compete with each other. It seemed like a healthy family, and it was the first time that I was ever seeing how it functioned because I have never experienced it personally. However, I was kind of skeptical about introducing him to my family because I knew that my parents were not going to approve of my life decisions. I was a bright student with a great future ahead of me, but I had decided to have kids with a man I had barely known for less than a year, and I had even moved in with him. Any parent would disapprove of this, and my parents would probably lose their heads. So I kept putting it off until I started a show, and then I knew that there was no hiding it anymore. I arranged a meeting with them when I was 4 months along and decided to tell them everything. I had invited them over to my house and had Jackson be there for me for moral support. They knew that I had been dating Jackson for a while, but they didn't know that I had been living with him and that I was also going to be the mother of his kids soon. So when I told them about it, I expected them to be angry and yell at me or something, but they reacted in a very unexpected way and actually seemed to be happy for me. They were thrilled and hugged me and stuff while congratulating me on the pregnancy. And when I told them that I was actually having twins, my mother almost fainted out of happiness. It was an unexpected reaction, but I was glad that they were not mad at me. In fact, after they got to know about it, they even threw me a party and announced to everybody that they were going to be grandparents soon. I had also told them that Jackson and I didn't want to get married just because we were having kids together. We wanted to live with each other for a while before making such a huge commitment, and they were fine with that as well. They were really supportive of everything, and I was shocked, but it was a happy kind. I was just really grateful that my parents were on my side on this, because I would have hated it if they turned against me or tried to change my mind about things. I even talked to them about how they were being so supportive, and I had actually not expected that of them. So they told me that they were aware that throughout our childhood, they had never really been good parents in the sense that they had never stopped my sister and me from competing with each other, and they thought that they were doing a good thing. They thought that they were doing us a favor by constantly pushing us to do better. But in doing so, they realized that they might have screwed things up for it in the long run. And this realization happened when they got to know that I had quit my job because I wanted to do something better, and they knew that this decision had been influenced by the fact that Stacy had started her own business and was doing really well, which is why I also wanted to do something of my own and outdo Stacy. I found it weird that they knew about this even though I had never really mentioned it to them. But they said that as parents they knew what was going on and they felt responsible for it. So they wanted me to know that they would be there for me no matter what. And I didn't need to constantly compete with Stacy to prove that I was worthy of their love and affection. They would always love me, and they were equally proud of both of us because we had always done our best, and that's what mattered to them the most. It was a much-needed conversation, and I'm glad that I talked things through with my parents because it made it a lot easier for me during the pregnancy and even afterward because I could freely ask my parents to help me out with the kids while Jackson and I were working. They had told me that they had had a similar conversation with Stacy as well, but apparently it didn't really go as well as they had expected it to. She had just laughed and said that she didn't need them to say such things because she genuinely believed that I was a sore loser, which is why I was having a breakdown, and that's why my parents were trying to cut me some slack by telling us that they were equally proud of both of us. But she knew what the truth was. She just refused to accept that our parents had been really trying to turn over a new leaf and be better parents. She was just convinced that she was more worthy of their love because she was doing better in life by her standards. My parents told me that they would talk to her when she would come back for the holidays because online it was just not the same. So they promised me that they would talk to Stacy and have the same conversation that they did with me. So she would also stop trying to compete with me because up until that point she had been going above and beyond and trying to make me feel bad ever since I had announced the news of my pregnancy. She had been sending me backhanded compliments and making straight remarks that were completely uncalled for in the family group chat, just to put me down and make me feel bad about the pregnancy. Even though I really didn't think there was any reason for me to feel bad about it. But to her, it was obviously a failure, and a huge one at that, because I was knocked up before marriage and was living with some guy who I barely knew. So to her, this was a huge one for her, and she believed that now she could say whatever she wanted to me. It was really getting on my nerves, and I had almost wanted to leave the group chat several times, but my parents were the ones who convinced me to stay because they said that they were really trying to be better parents, and they wanted us to stick together. So I stayed for their sake. My parents promised me that they would put an end to this, or at least they would try their best, and if they were unable to do so, then I was free to leave the group. So when Stacy came back for Christmas, my parents told me that they were going to talk to her, and they did. But unfortunately, she was too far gone by then. Her sole aim in life at that point was to humiliate me and make me feel as small as she could. She was insufferable that year, even though she had been quite annoying for the past couple of years before that as well, because of her successful business. But that year was much worse because not only had she just come back from Japan, but she had also come back knowing that I was pregnant and not even close to her in terms of success and wealth. And she did not let go of even one opportunity to remind us of that. The entire time, she was just bragging about herself and shooting me looks or even asking me if I was not happy for her. It was just really awkward and uncomfortable, and I had to leave the party early because I was trying really hard not to lose my temper or end up crying in front of everyone. So after that Christmas party, my parents tried to talk to Stacy so she would cut it out. But instead, she said that she had worked hard to get where she is, and she wasn't going to let me take that away from her. So she was going to brag about it all she wanted, and I would just have to deal with it. So that is the point where I decided that I would cut ties with her, and I left the group. My parents also believed that it was for the best. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, and I had no idea what she had been up to, but recently I heard from a couple of my relatives that she was back from Japan with a baby. I heard about it for the first time around 4 weeks ago, and apparently it was a miracle baby who was just 2 months old. My parents told me that they had been on video calls with her several times before she came back and had never noticed anything of her, let alone that she was pregnant. She said that she had wanted it to be a surprise for everyone and said that she had become a mother and had recently gotten married to her husband, the father of her children, in a private ceremony just a year ago, and now she was finally ready to talk about it. The timing was nothing less than suspicious because pretty much everybody in the family knew that I was supposed to get married around the same time. But now, thanks to her, everyone could only talk about her marriage and her daughter. She said that her husband was still in Japan because he had a lot of work and he couldn't make it, but she had come here with her daughter because she wanted her family to meet her. But I couldn't let something like that get under my skin because I was getting married, and that was supposed to be a magical time. So even after she came back, I continued to avoid her. Unfortunately, it didn't matter anyway because she found a way to ruin my wedding. She turned up on the day of my wedding uninvited just after the ceremony. I'm honestly just thankful that at least whatever happened after the ceremony was over. She crashed my wedding, and when I saw her among the guests, I almost flipped out. But Jackson and my parents helped me calm down because apparently she had snuck in, and if I made a scene, then I would just be right into her hands and make my wedding day all about her. So, as long as she was not actively doing anything terrible, we could just let her stay and deal with it later. I was getting married in Jackson's aunt's farmhouse, so the security there wasn't tight anyway, which is how she managed to get in the first place. Now I kind of regret not spending enough money on security because had I done so, we could have been able to avoid a lot of things. Throughout the time that she was there at the wedding, all that she was talking about was how she was incredibly lucky because of her miracle baby and how my children were illegitimate and didn't count because I had them before marriage. It was incredibly insulting because she was saying that to everybody that she met while socializing at my wedding, and everyone who talked to her later on came up to me and told me about it. And I had to just smile and let it go because I didn't want to fight with her and ruin my own wedding. It was incredibly difficult, but I was getting through it somehow. At one point, I almost lost it, but before I could even say anything, the place was stormed by the police. I had no idea what was going on, but they made us seal the exits, and we were locked in. Within seconds, they had arrested Stacy, and it was really disorienting because there was a woman who was screaming and crying and holding the baby that was supposed to be my sister's and claiming that it was hers. After that, it was a blur of statements and handcuffs and stuff like that. It was not until much later that we figured out that the baby had not been her baby. Apparently, all the pictures that she had been showing us were taken from a friend's social media account, and she had photoshopped herself into it like some sicko. And the worst part of it was that all the times that she had met us with the baby, she had actually been babysitting for her friend. She had been living with her friend ever since she came back from Japan because she had ended the lease on her own apartment and was looking for a place. So she was babysitting for free, which is why she had never invited our parents or our relatives to visit her and had only been visiting them. On the day of my wedding, she decided to take it a little far and attend my wedding without her friend's consent. What she had done was take the baby out while her friend and her husband were asleep and refused to take any calls afterward, which is why her friends had to get the cops involved and have her arrested. Thankfully, she had been talking incessantly about my wedding and how she wanted to take me down, so her friends had been able to guess where she would be, and that's how they had been able to track her down and have her arrested. It was literally crazy, and I can't believe that it happened, but it did. My family and I have still been having a hard time coming to terms with it. To think that Stacy was extremely competitive was one thing, but knowing that she was actually willing to go to such extreme psychotic lengths just to prove to our parents that she was better than us was very concerning. Now she is begging her friends not to press charges against her because she's obviously not going to win that one. She'll end up in jail. So nothing has happened yet. But for some reason, she's blaming me for all of this and claims that apparently I was only getting married to rub it in her face. Now, let's not forget that I haven't been in touch with her for almost 2 years and haven't even spoken to her ever since our last interaction. I had even been gracious enough to let her crash my wedding because I didn't want to make a scene and humiliate her. She's the one who took my wedding and turned it into something ugly. If anything, I should be the one blaming her. So yesterday, when she reached out to me and told me that I needed to convince her friends that I had driven her to do something crazy, I told her that I wish she would end up in prison because that's where she belongs, either that or the psych ward, because she is crazy. But right now, my parents think that I need to help her out and convince her friends that she was not thinking straight because I've been tormenting her with the news of my marriage and kids just so that they don't press charges against her and get her arrested. Now, on to the next story. Story 8. Boyfriend used me for my money and cheated, so I ghosted him and took his business. Throwaway account. IF36. Have dated Nick, am 37, for 3 years. I wasn't perfect, but my perception is that we have had an overall positive relationship until a year ago when I caught him cheating. I'm financially independent and have been a careful planner in terms of my finances. I'll be completely debt-free on January 22nd. I had a hard time forgiving him, but he did everything to regain my trust, and we had a somewhat smooth run for about 8 months. He asked me to help him start a business, which I did. In part, I wrote the plan according to his idea, coached him through getting his permits, and all other steps. He didn't follow through. First, it was that he didn't have time. Then it was that he was anxious because getting it off the ground wouldn't be immediate. So, in other words, I created a business for him where I would be his main client. This sounded like a happy medium since he wanted me to appoint him as my partner, and that's unthinkable. For background, I went to college, and while being an average student, I did work hard later on when I found my first job to make up for not having an excellent academic record. I earned certificates and invested in my education however I could to improve my chances. It paid off. I've been self-employed since I was 28. When I met Nick, he told me he owned a small agency, but was about to get a government job since the economy wasn't helping. I was perfectly okay with that. Things were going well until I found out that he was seeing his ex. This was a huge blow for me because I didn't know what I did for him to do this. I did everything in my power to be supportive and to be reliable. So I did my best to look nice for him, and I was contributing to the household. I paid half of everything, and it was my place. We had a long crisis until I chose to forgive and let go. During this new honeymoon phase, he got a better job, treated me with love, and was very attentive to my feelings. I began to see red flags early this past October. He suddenly wanted me to be hands-off from his startup, didn't want to go out, and lost interest in sex. He became grouchy and rude. It was all about him and his needs. He lost his job last year due to company. We moved to a house I leased in January. I loved the house, but it created friction between us. I'm an animal lover. My landlord doesn't interfere with my pet-related activities as long as I can keep the place clean. I built a catio for my 10-plus cats that I've rescued. It's an indoor space with controlled temperature, and all their supplies are available to them 24/7. This was my dream. I wanted to help those kitties stay off the street since I've been feeding them for years. Also, they have all their shots. One of them had CKD, but bounced back. Nick knew this from the start. The house is clean, no pet smells, thanks to the automatic cat litter boxes. He resented the cats because he wanted his family to move in. The answer was no, we never discussed this. He went as far as to ask me to get rid of the cats and suggested I put them up for adoption. The cats were not his expense. He hasn't worked a steady job in months, while I've helped him fund his business meetings because I didn't want to kill his dream. He does contribute, but significantly less. I cannot live with his family. They are beggars and moochers. The pattern is that his siblings and himself break off their relationships as soon as babies are born. I realized this too late. Nick says his ex went crazy after she gave birth. His brother tricked his ex into moving with her parents while he found a home for them and the baby. He never found a house, but knocked her up a second time, so her parents banned him from stepping into their home. The youngest brother hightailed his wife when she had her second baby. All his siblings and his mom lived together. His reason for wanting them to move in was that we had 3 spare bedrooms plus a very large family room, and that it would be great if they saved on rent. So, I guess there was no intention to contribute. Long story short, I got really sick by the end of October. I never got so much as a kind gesture from him. I cried due to body aches, and he just stayed away. His excuse is that I could be contagious. It wasn't company. He never asked me if he could get me anything to eat and hardly ever came to check on me. I spent a lonely Thanksgiving while still recovering because he left to be with his family. My loved ones aren't near because I left everything for him. At some point, we talked about marriage. I recently found out he is back with his side chick. I was going to hire a PI, but it's not worth it. I already know what I need to know. I got a hold of his phone and found about 3 weeks worth of texts. They are definitely having sex. I've held this inside of me because at first I was in too much pain to confront him. I don't wish it on anybody. We are hardly on speaking terms, and he hasn't even bothered to ask me what's wrong. I didn't find anything on his girlfriend's social media, Laura. I did find more than I needed to know from her mother's profile. He has been active in their lives since at least last summer and has been lying to me. This hits close to home. While he's been lying to me about going to job interviews without any luck, I've been partially financing his lifestyle. He is a so-called business trip to the BVI. I no longer think there is business involved, or he may be combining business with something else. I don't know if this is a fake business conference or what, and I don't want to know. I did see Laura's mother's social media, and she vaguely mentions a trip abroad. I'm leaving him first because of the pain he's causing me, and second because he's a liar. I need advice to see if there's anything I'm leaving out from my to-do list. I'll be disconnecting from him. I'm not granting him the luxury of knowing that I'm pulling the rug in advance. I already talked to the landlord, as I'll be leaving the house slightly earlier. I'll be using Nick's trip to uproot myself. I already hired a company that specializes in pet transport since I'm concerned about flying pets in cargo. I have all their health certificates in order, so they will be coming to pick my kittens up by 9 a.m. Nick's flight leaves much earlier, so he needs to be out by 6 a.m. I'm moving closer to my family, and I've already made arrangements to board my pets until a new catio is built for them. My sister will take care of it. I will be living on my own property. I've arranged for the movers to come the same day in the afternoon. That way, I'll have time to pack and separate my stuff from his. I'll have all his personal items shipped to his mother's house because I don't want any personal interaction. All business efforts have been canceled. I made sure he gets no access to my clients and deleted the business plan, etc. I need to change all my passwords and all the pins on all my cards and the Visa I've allowed him to use for emergencies because he might be able to draw from it. I also need to drain the bank account I let him use for business expenses and close it. I think it's best if I do it while he's flying to keep him from using them. I DK if I'm leaving anything out. I will leave immediately to avoid any surprises, his family coming to confront me, etc. He can now move in with his GF if he wants. I think she lives with her parents, but he will no longer be my problem. Any suggestions? I'd hate to leave loose ends. Update 1. I moved out, and I'm safe. First of all, thanks to all of you who took the time to send me your good wishes and pieces of advice. You've been really helpful. I take your good faith to heart. I created a checklist with all your suggestions to make sure that I made a clean exit, or as clean as possible. The pet transport service was on time. I'm glad that my cats made it safely. My sister was very helpful and took care of the new catio, which will be the entire middle bedroom. It's very spacious, bigger than my old catio, and they will be happy there. I'm not too crazy about outdoor catios because I love keeping them indoors. They can enjoy sightseeing from the windows. Nick seemed to be in a hurry to leave. I thought he might leave by 6 a.m., but he left before 5 o'clock. I spent the night, or most of it, canceling services he wouldn't notice and keeping things in order. I'm glad I never gave up my home office. He wanted me to give it up so that we could use the room to accommodate his family. He already had the mental picture that I should do it, plus give up my cats so that the catio would become an additional bedroom. I find a home office really useful as I need to have a separate mental space. This is how I close my workday, log off, and avoid constantly checking work on the computer. I could never do that if I kept my office space where I sleep. I lock myself all night to work on removing any link to him. Still painful, but my resentment is helping me despise him even more. After he left, I was able to separate his belongings from mine until the pet transport came in. I was nervous thinking that he might suddenly show up, but thankfully it didn't happen. I stopped by to donate his business suits on my way to the bank. A scumbag doesn't need nice suits. I don't know why I let him talk me into getting him nice clothes to look presentable at work meetings. He never completed anything, not even after business meetings. I also donated all our unopened food. I hate throwing away food. I got a list of documents the bank required to close/drain accounts, so I'm glad the teller was helpful. I took advice from Redditors and went to a different branch to avoid familiarities between Nick and bank workers. I locked my credit, reported all cards I stolen, including his emergency visa, the ATM he used for occasional business expenses, and removed him from all my reward systems, pharmacy, supermarket, etc. I changed my phone number a bit later, so there's no way he can use them. The main reason for me to keep my old number for a short while was to avoid being disconnected should his family call. If they called, I would be warned that something was up. Mainly, I try to use his 8 hours of air travel to disable all financial ties to avoid confrontation. The movers took a little longer because some furniture needed disassembling. I gave them all his tools and workbench that I gifted Nick. They also helped me take down the catio. I had the landlord keep the bed, as I'm repulsed. All his belongings were documented and shipped to his mother. I was told it could take a day or two. The landlord already got the keys. I left ASAP after cleaning up because I was nervous he would call his family in case he tried to use the cards and they would show up to my place. I donated most of my clothing, same place where I left Nick's suits, to avoid triggering memories. I don't need all that stuff. I'm not a fancy dresser, so whatever replacements I get won't be expensive. I took all the electronics I bought for him, game console, tablet, desktop. The latter were my efforts to help him build an office. More on the tablet below. I left for a B&B about 4 hours away to make sure I didn't run into his family. I'm still tired and mentally exhausted, but I'm satisfied that I did it before Nick landed in the BVI, tried to use the cards, found out, sent someone since he was blocked from my phone, etc. I kept finding things that made me feel even more stupid, but what's done is done. I opened his external memory to delete any of the files that I created and found an e-business card with his ex's, now side chick, name as Chief Marketing Director for the company I created for him. This is beyond dishonesty, and please, Marketing Director my ass. They're living in a dream. I was told in my previous post to expose him to her, but she knows about me. Her texts were sometimes insistent on him making a choice, and sometimes very passive about understanding he needed time. Her mother and sister both did a FB check-in at a BVI airport, so this is definitely not a business trip. Let them cover for his expenses now. I don't think her mother likes Nick, because their texts make reference to some parental interference from her mom. I'm sure Nick's show will begin when he tries to get into our place. Maybe the owner already changed the locks by then. If not, he must already know, as his stuff was shipped. I will take advice and go to therapy because my levels of anxiety are over the top. About his tablet, I logged onto it and found it logged onto his email accounts and texting. It was both cathartic and awful. I found out he'd been fired from his government job. It's not that he lost his job, he effing got fired. Lied to me about getting a new job and then lied about not getting paid for what I gathered. He spent days walking around the mall in IDK. For what purpose? She constantly asked him if he was at XYZ shop. Sometimes he sent her pics of his breakfast at the mall. I started that relationship fair and square. He was single, at least. I'm glad I was never a side piece. His breakup with her is confirmed by the messages. She's very young, F25, has a job, and come from a tight-knit family from what it looks like on her mother's FB page. Their messages also let me know what a low life he is. He wanted her to actively market his non-existent business. And when she succeeded, then he would be comfortable about leaving me. He told her he would have left me earlier, but she needed to understand that would affect him, and she needed to understand that. She replied with desperate messages that she was looking for a better job. Sometimes she was docile and didn't push him. Nick showed up one day with a rolling case bag full of documents. He said we could use it to call in clients. I was excited until he said it was from his ex's office, that those files were meant to be discarded, so he will use them. That was among the first red flags that I got when I found out they were back together. I refused. 1, because those are confidential client files, and it's illegal. 2, because I wanted nothing to do with her. So, in other words, her boss entrusted her to dispose of them, and she turned them over to Nick. I had lied up about this some time ago. Initially, I wasn't going to do anything, but after reading her unkind messages when I was sick, I decided to turn the files over to her boss via my lawyer. No further action will be taken on my side, but aside from screwing her up, I need to make it clear that I never used/took advantage of those files, just in case she and Nick get in trouble somewhere along the way. I'm safe and happy to be so near my family, but I'm mentally drained. I feel dirty and disposable. His family knew, his friends knew, she knew I existed and said I was playing sick to get pity. She texted that I wasn't helping more financially because I'm greedy. His replies reinforced this. His empty goals played a part here. He's been promising her that he will make it big and talks too much about an industry he hardly knows. All he were my good faith and knowledge. He never nurtured his own network because he gets mad when he's told no, but does nothing to be worthy of people's time. I will never help a man build himself, ever. I need to refocus and rebuild my life. I want to help my sister. Maybe I'll take chunks of Nick's so-called business and develop it for her if she agrees. I need to lose my feeling of being invalidated. It helps that I left a show behind for them to deal with. Let Nick move in with his sharp-tongued sister and her unruly kids that she allows to climb on the wall. Let him find out how the website has been taken down. He asked me to back him up to occasionally pay for the business dinners. I wonder if he tried to be a hero and tried to slide the card for his side chick's family's meals. I will never know. I hope he enjoys living with his little brother and his baby mama drama from an ex who is now successful and wastes no time dragging him down. I'd love to see the situation when his other brother gets yelled at and taken to court by his ex. This is basically a yearly event. Or when his sister goes crazy and starts yelling because her ex walked out on her and somehow this is everyone else's fault. Thanks again for your kindness to those who PM me about help opening a business. I'd like to say 1, thank you. 2, you can start a business with little money as long as you have a valuable service to offer. Do market research. Don't go crazy trying to get everywhere. Avoid saturated markets. 3, invest in compliance. There's no way around it. Taxes, formation, registrations, and certificates are mandatory if you want to be taken seriously. For based on my bitter situation, don't trust anybody, no one. Don't share your good fortune with losers. Help your loved ones and ride or die friends. Don't mix love and money, just don't. Give a hand up, don't give handouts. 5, do things in bits. Macro plans are doable if taken apart. Just my 2 cents. Edit to add newest update January 5th, 2022. Thanks for your kind replies and messages. My update is kind of fragmented as it's not first-hand knowledge. I spent New Year's Eve with my family. It was both weird and a relief. It was so nice I almost felt out of place since Nick's family is kind of difficult in terms of keeping the relationships together. Their holiday gatherings tend to bring a lot of tension. So, my New Year's Eve was simple. I went to visit family and got to enjoy the gathering with old friends we've known for years. We took all the precautions, COVID vaccine shots, etc. I like the feeling of just being a regular person and not having to be guarded against getting on Mill's or Sill's bad side, or feeling that my so isn't making an effort to compensate for me being away from my family. My sister agreed to allow me to help her set up a new business. I'll be coaching her. She won't have to go crazy looking for clients, since I'll outsource some tasks to her. I'll be helping her get new clients once she fully learns and masters her new trade. Also, this will surely allow her to practice while gaining credibility. She's a hard worker, and she already enrolled in courses so that she can gain some expertise. My sister is a patient learner who writes everything down. I love it because it encourages me to keep it up. I had a chance to get to know my teenage nieces and nephews a little better. They grew fast while I was away, and to actively participate in helping the family pet stay in a room where they would be safe during the fireworks madness. I rolled the storm stoppers at home before I left, so hopefully it helped with sound insulation. I left my family's home early the next morning and spent the whole day in my pajamas watching comedy shows. Honestly, loungewear is the best way to ease my malady. I need the lighthearted stuff right now. I got lots of sushi and pizza. I treated myself, too. I'm still recovering from my illness, and I think the long trip took a toll because I'm fatigued. It could also be mental exhaustion. Well, my only option now is to get better. So about Nick, the hit the fan at least twice. I got an update from my landlord. My lawyer suggested I give my old landlord my new number to keep communication open should he need anything or need any post-move adjustments. I left owing him no money. The catio and everything else were taken down, but it's best to keep communication open to avoid misunderstandings. Everything was clear between me and Andy, landlord. He just called to verify that I didn't give Nick any instructions towards asking him for anything. First, he showed up asking for assistance unlocking the door because his key was broken, lying. The landlord refused. But when he came back this time with his mother and sister, the landlord called me as Nick claimed that I said I'd left some of his stuff with Andy. This makes no sense. I confirmed this is a lie. Nick wanted Andy to open the door for him, but Andy declined. And he mentioned things that he just can't make up. He said Nick told him that he's a businessman and a respectable person and that he's a victim because I'm trying to take him down because I know he can succeed. This sounds so familiar. Back when we were together, he used to blame unknown enemies for his setbacks. When I say unknown, just think about the man that started when I called him out for not putting enough effort on his goals. Oh, and he said this is happening because he broke up with me and I couldn't handle it. Also, he tried to talk Andy into letting him stay for the remainder of the lease to extinguish the time frame until next rent, but obviously the answer was no. Also, even if he got in, all utilities have been canceled. His sister suggested Nick bring a bed or something to use up the remaining weeks of the lease, but this is a no-go since the lease was only on my name. This originated an exchange between her and the landlord. Nick and his family insisted on lurking around after being asked to leave. He says Nick and his mother made it really hard to get rid of and that his sister sat on the stairs and was defiant. I can't recall what her reply was when Andy told her that sitting on the staircase wasn't allowed, but it was enough to piss Andy off. Nick was hell-bent on convincing him that he needed to let him in to retrieve his business files and info. Nothing else happened at this point after they were told the police would be called on them. So Nick and his family went outside and remained in the parking lot. Andy told me Nick looked flushed and unhinged and was talking really fast. Oh, and he demonized me the whole time. Andy and I had excellent landlord/tenant rapport, so I was kind of embarrassed when he told me Nick tried to put himself at Andy's professional level and kind of tried to remove boundaries. I know this is on Nick, but it reflects on me also because I was with him. That's all I know from Andy's side, so sorry if this doesn't make a lot of sense. I called my lawyer. It was all covered before I left, but I got confirmation that a successful lawsuit is another long shot since Nick only used his mother's address as his official dwelling place. He even used it in for his legal battle with his ex-wife. I know this for a fact. My sister sent me screenshots from his AP's mom's profile. Nick's sister and AP's sister have been at a crossfire over their siblings. I don't know AP's sister's personality, but I know my former SIL is very prone to getting involved. There are lots of cryptic hostile posts on his sister's side. It's all hatred against her own ex and lots of venom against people who will claim to love you but won't hesitate to attempt to destroy you. Never trust someone who claims they will help you but will leave you with nothing. She also makes reference to little women who get infatuated with men and dump them after they are finally available. Beware of women who behave like groupies. They don't love you, they won't stick with you. You will learn who really loves you when you have nothing but yourself to offer. Also, she got lots of quotes with Nick being tagged about family being there for you. Tomorrow will look better. That's totally them and the dynamics of their family from hell. They love to hurt people, but act like victims and are too sensitive to take responsibility. Okay, so the AP's mother has gone crazy in the last 6 days or so. They did celebrate New Year's Eve, and Nick's face is nowhere to be seen. All of her siblings are shown with her SOs, and she's not shown with him. Also, all pics showing Nick from the Caribbean family vacation seem to have been deleted. I noticed she wasn't tagged in her employer Christmas post. I'm familiar with that company style. I'll admit I went crazy checking their profile when I first found out about their affair the first time around, and they love to tag their employees. It's a small company. She was tagged for Thanksgiving and all the previous greeting posts from every holiday in 2021. So, they include all their employees in these posts, and she hasn't been included. Not on the Christmas post, not on the New Year's Eve post, not on the New Year's Day post. They posted about 3 entries in between, and she wasn't tagged. Her profile is active, but she's just not being included. Her sister who lives abroad posted a picture of all the siblings, and she definitely hates Nick. Nick's AP replied with a nice sentence about family, and his sister told her that she's amazing and that she's sure God will have great things in storage for you next year. Remember, when a door closes, thousands will open, and whomever should not be in your life will be removed, no matter how painful it gets. Also, she posts a lot about freeloaders. I don't like AP, but I feel that somehow she's getting scapegoated by his family. I'm not sure what happened or exactly what went down. They're definitely not together, and she seems to no longer be working at that firm. Her mother seems to be reeling and has been writing a lot about parasitic men, losers seeking someone to latch onto, and mothers are always right. TBH, I don't think their breakup, if so, has to do with me canceling his chances at using me. The vibe I'm getting is that maybe he tried to squeeze more than was acceptable from AP in front of her family. Or I could be wrong. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Best friend was outed at his trans by another friend. I defended him, and it led to someone losing their job. I will try to make this as short as possible, but have to explain a lot too. So here we go. My BFF Sam and I have been besties for over a decade, and thus, I have known him pre-transition. He didn't live in the city I did until about 4 years ago, but when he moved, I helped him get a job, make friends, etc. Some think he is my BF of a year. The truth is a bit more complicated. 2 years ago, I got out of a very abusive relationship, and when I was on the market, I got swarmed a bit with being asked out by casual acquaintances. Sam posed as my BF to get an especially pushy guy away from me at a bar we were both regulars at, and we kept it going because, one, he gets pressured by his coworkers and mentors that he is a catch and should date, but he hasn't felt ready, and 2, so I can have some peace as I focus on my therapy and healing from my past relationship. Note, our best friend group knows that Sam and I are not really a couple. Another guy like that was Maul, another friend in the group. He asked me out around 4 or 5 months after my breakup. I explained that I needed at least a 2-year break from dating, focus on continued therapy, working through my trauma, and take time to focus on me and what I wanted, all that jazz. He said he understood, and not even 2 months after that, we found out that Maul and another of the group were a couple, and now they are engaged. Maul has been a friend for maybe 3 or 4 years. We were never especially close, and I always just viewed him as a member of our 6-person friend group. We only ever hang out with the group, and never one-on-one. I guess I'm saying this all to say Maul is sort of the Flash to my Batman. We get on well, win with the other super friends, but don't expect too many duo team-ups. At a party at my place, where many of our co-workers and bosses were present, Sam's boss points to me and Sam, saying something about how he can't wait for us to settle down and have kids, saying, "Come on, Sam, what are you waiting for, man?" And Maul snorts and clearly muttered man very incredulously and said, "Yeah, if you want to call Samantha man, that's on you." At first, our friends thought it was a supernatural joke, as a lot of us love the show. A character is named Sam, and another character calls him Samantha to emasculate him. But then Maul outed Sam as actually a woman and provided proof by way of pictures of Sam pre-transition. Maul then made comments about me that I must be a lesbian. I am, by the way, and that Sam I must be actually a real couple and sleeping together. He was kicked out of my home. Now, being outed as a trans man at work caused a lot of drama, and Sam was depressed and has stayed with me for a better part of a month. He didn't eat much and lost a ton of weight, almost never left the house, especially not alone unless to go to work, and has been saying very self-loathing, morbid things here and there. I've been really worried about him. I won't lie, I was furious. I'm not an overly confrontational person, and I'm a recovering doormat, but this made my whole being boil. I have been focused on being attentive to Sam and trying to channel my anger and hurt into productive things. But the friend group is a bit complicated, as most think Maul is a dick for outing Sam, but some also think Sam is a jerk for not being honest with him. So here's where I'm probably in awe. I texted Maul and Maul's fiancée, our mutual friend in the group, Michaela, and said that Maul isn't welcome at my home for the foreseeable future, and after that is really up to Maul's action and Sam's ability to forgive such things. But she defended him, saying that Maul was just upset that Sam hid that he was really a trans all along and now felt uncomfortable, and that Sam should have said something at least to our group before joining outings like swimming, in which the men change in the men's locker room and the women in the women's, etc. She says she feels hurt that another woman saw Maul undressing, and it devolved from there. In this group, we all work in the same type of industry, but in different departments, essentially in mostly different companies. We're always a bit adjacent to one another in career, though. That is a lot to say. Everyone here usually makes at least six-figure money, and we all know each other's coworkers and the like. I got a call from another friend, Peter, who is hiring right now for a senior position, and he said Maul had applied for it. Peter is essentially already above Maul, as Peter is the boss of Maul's current boss. Maul had put me down as a reference, which in our group, we do frequently when applying. Peter was content to use the same letter of recommendation I had sent before when Maul applied for his current position, but wanted to cover all the bases, and I told him that I no longer see Maul as an ethical, responsible, or suitable candidate in our field, given that he seems to be bigoted towards queer folks, and I, as a queer woman, no longer trust him and would not want to work with him if I had any say in it. Peter was quiet and asked what caused the change, and I didn't tell him, just saying recent events have caused me to reassess. This was perhaps a week ago. Well, a few hours ago, Michaela came over my place and was pissed. She told me that Maul is getting grilled at work, that HR combed his social media and has brought up posts of his and are now considering disciplinary actions with him. And she says she knows it's me. She says Sam literally doesn't have the balls to call the company, so it had to be me. She seemed to think I had a crush on Maul, and he turned me down, and thus I was jealous of her and trying to ruin their lives. She called me desperate and degenerate. I snapped and asked her to leave. She then texted me the same argument she had before, and I reiterated over text that I don't want to speak to her or Maul ever again. I screenshotted all of this and sent it to our friend group chat and left the chat. Now I'm getting message from almost everyone asking what's happening, but also that I'm going nuclear and went too far. I texted Sam, and Sam says he is not ready to deal with the friend group right now, so I could do what I think is right, and he will regroup and come back to it when he has the bandwidth. Did I go too far in involving everyone? Am I the off for going nuclear? Update 1. August 10th, 2024. A little under a month ago, I posted about an ongoing issue. My best friend Sam was outed as a trans man publicly by our former mutual friend Maul. Maul applied for a job before all this and used us as references, and I said that I don't find him to be trustworthy, nor would I want to work with him. His fiancée, another friend of ours, frankly forgot the fake name I gave her, I think it's Michaela, basically blamed me for Maul then getting a lot of heat at work. The update is that HR combed his social media and uncovered quite a few unsavory posts. I never knew this, but he's hugely vocally transphobic and homophobic. So instead of a promotion, he got fired. I had already left the friend group chat by this point, and I had blocked both Maul and Michaela. I was focused on Sam, who was going through the deepest depression I've ever seen him go through, and we've known each other a good chunk of our lives. I helped him find emergency therapy, and he stayed with me for almost a month because he was concerned he would fall back into self-harm. He drank heavily and was spiraling hard, and thankfully he's now on the other side of it all, but it was terrifying. Neither of us got a lot of sleep during this time, and I called in a bunch at work out of exhaustion, concern, or plain numbness. I caught up with a friend from our old group named DF30s at a place we all frequent a few weeks ago, and she told me Maul has told everyone that Sam is a woman, Earl, and she cosplays as a man. My blood boiled, but then I heard about him being fired, and hey, I'm human, and he hurt my best friend, so in my book he got off really easy. But of course, about a week after that, I ran into him and Michaela at our local Redacted. I'm a creature of habit, That's the store in my community, and I always get groceries on Sundays, walk across to the Starbucks next door, have a tea, and doom scroll for a bit before biking back home. I saw them. They saw me. I avoided them, got my stuff, and walked to Starbucks. Maul, I guess, had stuff to get off his chest, so he ended up there too. He approached me as I waited for my coffee and started on how I stabbed him in the back and stooped low to do so. And now he has no job. He said he might have to move because of the rumors I spread about him and that he is being ostracized. He went on, belly aching. And this is Starbucks in a pretty liberal freaking city. So I just loudly said, well, that's what happens to transphobes, Maul. No one likes a bigot. Go away. And while he started in on whatever the hell he was saying, I couldn't hear over the bigoted stuff. This big dude walks over and tells him to F off. Maul is now telling this guy off, and they're tennis-balling insults until Maul aggressively points a finger in my face to say the N-word, a racial slur. Like, dude, at least use a shovel to dig yourself deeper, Christ. Leave enough hate for the other half-smoked, wet lettuce joint losers out there. Turns out, being a racist dumbass trumps being a homophobe in this beanery, because that's when people started shouting, and eventually he was just drowned out, surrounded by people who seemed to be in need of pitchforks, some holding their phones up to record. I was a forgotten prop and just sort of drifted back as he was trying to take on a sea of people from our city where we don't take kindly to this. He left and later sent Sam a paragraph's long message about how Sam, ruined his Maul's life because he is masquerading as a man, and if he were a real man, he would face him himself rather than have his girlfriend sicked on him. He then went on to say that if he dies from all this stress of being so hated, that he is now getting trolled on social media, receiving death threats, and the like, it will be Sam's fault. Maul said he should sue Sam and me both for defamation and lost wages since we started this witch hunt. Today I heard he moved. Sam's friend Michaela, she's still here, but I don't know about her situation right now and don't rightly care. I didn't know she met with Sam and apologized to him. And he did accept it, but was clear that their friendship is non-existent now. She offered to go to Pride, which is locally happening, and Sam said she is welcome to, but not with him. She asked him to please hand me a note she wrote for me, which he did, but I haven't read it and probably won't. As far as I am concerned, she doesn't exist anymore. So that's it. I had forgotten about my post until Sam asked me whatever happened about it, and I was like, oh yeah. And I, personally, as a lurker, hate unresolved stories. So here it is. Here's your bow. That's a wrap. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Do all the housework while working from home, but my wife brags to her friends that she does everything while also throwing away the lunches I pack for her at work. Hello everyone. My wife, 41F, and I, 42M, have been married for 15 years. I apparently surprised her by being capable of doing household chores and tasks, which I didn't think much of. My mom always asked me to help out with chores when I was a kid, so I didn't think it was me or anything. I do think I inherited her need to clean excessively, like it's so bad that I can't eat until a mess is dealt with. My mom is an amazing cook. My aunt was a literal chef at a fancy hotel, and my dad loved having barbecues. It was pretty natural to learn from them and pick up a thing or two. The only thing I didn't pick up was how to make a decent cup of tea or coffee. I'm genuinely awful at it. It got to a point where I was handling most of the household chores and taking care of cooking, which I prefer anyways since she comes home exhausted. I've been asking our children, 11F and 9M, to do some minor tasks around the house and hopefully teach them this sort of thing too. She has a group of friends who hang out regularly. This time, it was her turn to host the group at her home. I offered to take our children out for the day, and it was all set. Before we left, I had to finish up some things for work. The office space is practically on top of our living room, so I could hear what they were talking about the entire time. One of the friends asked how she always kept our house so spotless, and my wife just bragged about how she was responsible for it all. Then they all started talking about their gripes with their marriages. A common theme was how unhelpful their spouses were. I felt pretty uncomfortable, so I just left the office and went out with the kids. I came back after they had left for the night and acted as normal until we got to our bedroom. I asked her what was up with that conversation they had and pointed out that I did the cooking and cleaning in our marriage. She told me not to take it personally and that she just wanted to fit in with the struggles of her friends. Now I just feel unappreciated, especially since I don't clearly remember any genuine gratitude for what I do from her. Since then, she's been pretty short with me. She says I'm weaponizing what I'm doing against her and holding it over her head. I don't expect her to compliment me each time I clean or to defend me religiously. Just a little, my husband is pretty helpful. Actually, he does his share would be nice. I can't help but feel like her friends think I'm some sort of deadbeat who comes home to relax and neglect her. Update 1. October 23rd, 2024. I'm pretty shocked this post went as viral as it did, and I tried my best to speak to my wife yesterday. Today, I just can't believe that this is the woman I married. I tried speaking with her, telling her that what she did wasn't that big of a deal, but was still not a nice thing to do. She didn't like me bringing it up again and just told me to suck it up and stop bitching about one mistake. She apologized, but in a tone that just sounded like she was just tired of dealing with this. I noticed her getting very heated and on the verge of starting an argument. So I backed off and switched to a different topic. I asked if we could adjust our duties at home to be more fair for both of us, since most of our management fell to me. I mean, pretty much 90% of things like cooking/cleaning, including planning for our date nights or vacations for our family, rely on me. I do think it's an issue that she gets to come home and just tell me that she's tired. Then she got up in my face telling me I had no right to lecture her about chore duties when I'm practically at home most of the time. She completely refused to hear me out and basically told me that what we have works best for our situation. She threw me in my face that she was the money maker and that balanced everything out in the end. Even this morning, she was pretty annoyed with me coming downstairs in a bad mood. I'm very sure her kids noticed it too, but I drove them to school after they got ready. When I got back, I noticed that my wife left her packed lunch on our kitchen counter. So now I'm sitting here, just feeling like the woman I've known for 15 years hates me. I guess I'll have to push this issue properly, even if she gets angry. She's been ignoring my texts and attempts to call her. I can't just let her act like this, especially in front of our children. Update 2. October 24th, 2024. I think I'm just done at this point. I did something I never did before and went in her phone while she slept. We both know each other's passwords, so it wasn't really difficult. Some of the cheating comments got to me, and I felt pretty paranoid about this situation. Instead, I found a group chat with some of her work friends, different from the other friends she had over. It was just nonstop mockery of me and some of the stuff I did for her. She told them how embarrassed she feels to be with me and that I dot on her like a parent and don't feel like her husband. The lunches I packed for her are humiliating because I had sweets and other treats I know she likes. Some of her coworkers teased her about the snacks I have in for her, and she admitted to just throwing them out at work. She doesn't have any issue eating them at home, but at work she throws out my baking. She had some choice words to say about me in her chat, some of which I don't have the courage to type out here. One of her meme pictures was of me on my niece scrubbing a bathroom tile, edited to have some sort of dress on, like I was some sort of housewife in the 1960s or something. I just closed her phone and left the bedroom. I confronted her about the chat in the morning and the contents of it, which got her panicking. I focused on our kids this morning and left her to her own devices. It's not like she would have appreciated a kid's lunch anyways. Now she's texting me like crazy at the office. But I think I lost all respect for her and what she's become. Not only does she find me overbearing and embarrassing as a husband, but then I find out she mocks me to her friends and exposes some sensitive relationship issues to her group chat. This will probably be the last update, since I don't think she can come back from this. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary last month, too. I feel like a loser now after seeing what my wife actually thinks of me. Comment where Opie has replied. Commenter, are you a stay-at-home father? Opie, we both work. She makes about $100K a year, while I make around $70K. She earns more, but she's definitely not the only income in our household. What makes my job great is that my boss lets me have a lot of flexibility, so I can work from home and take care of the house and kids as long as I give him heads up. Update 3, November 12th, 2024. I know I'm going to get some hate for my decision at the end of this all, but I gave my wife one more chance. She gave me a real apology for her actions and how she treated me about 2 weeks ago. In her own words, she let her friends' comments at work and her best friends affect her too much. My wife wanted to feel included in the groups by playing both sides, one that has a useless husband and one that has a clingy husband. She's not using them as an excuse and did take full responsibility for how poorly she treated me, which is a plus. She suggested some sort of marriage counseling for us and insisted on doing the planning herself to show me she's dead serious on wanting to make this work. She's copied me in her communications with a counselor, but it'll still be a while before our first appointment. She stepped up in the home too, doing more tasks without me asking. The compliments I used to get have also made a return, so I do feel a little more appreciated. My wife promised me that she wouldn't lie to her friend group anymore and give me the credit I deserve. The work friends, I don't know about their opinions on me, will forever be as they are, even though she talked to them. Part of this field feels disingenuous, since it took us getting into a bad spot for this to happen. Maybe it's just resentment talking. I just hope this works out for our sake and the kids. And no, she has not been cheating or had some guy in her ear telling her things. A lot of DMs are asking about that. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Girl asked me to spot her in gym, but I said no because she was filming. Turns out she's been calling me her gym crush online for months, and my wife found out. Hello, everyone. I, 41M, go to the gym early morning around 5:30 a.m. There are generally very few people that come to the gym at that time. There's a girl, early 20s, that also comes to the gym at the same time. We always say hello to each other and have a small talk between her sets. She comes in early because the gym is empty and she likes to record herself working out as she wants to be a fitness influencer or something. She seems dedicated, and we know each other for at least a year. Today morning as I was working out, she came to me and asked for help. She was very excited and told me that she wanted to go for a PR on barbell squat. She asked me if I could spot her, as she was not confident if she would be able to do it. I said okay, as this is not the most uncommon thing. For people who are unfamiliar, this is an exercise where you carry a barbell with weights on your back and perform a squat. The spotter has to stand behind the person and support the person in case they fail to get up. As she was getting ready, I saw her phone in the corner and asked her if I can be off camera or if she can stop recording. She said she really wanted to record herself doing it, and I will look good on camera. I told her that I really do not want to be on camera, as my wife or coworkers may watch the video she posted online and may not look good for me. Another reason that I did not tell her was that she was wearing a very revealing outfit, small sports bra and tight shorts, and I really did not feel comfortable being recorded standing behind her. She promised me that she will record it for herself and not post the video. However, I just did not want to be recorded. I told her that I really feel uncomfortable, and if she waits for 30 minutes, one of the trainers may be able to help her. She became really upset and asked me why I am making the situation weird. She accused me of sexualizing her. She asked me if she was a man, would I have done it? I felt she had a point, as I have done it for other people. I told her that I would be okay doing it, but I just don't want to be recorded doing it. She again went on a rant about me body shaming her and me being uncomfortable with her perfectly fine outfit. I felt bad that I upset her, as she was just trying to work out. I have also asked people to spot me in past, and people always helped. However, I just did not want to be recorded. Am I the odd or refused to spot her because she was recording it? I don't want her to feel that it was because of her clothes or because she is a girl. However, as a married man, I need to observe some boundaries and really don't want to be recorded in that way with a girl half my age. I am also worried that she recorded our whole conversation and may post it online. I do not know what I should do in this situation, and I'm a bit worried. Update 1, July 19th, 2024. I had posted on a different forum 3 weeks ago about me refusing to help a girl in the gym for spotting her barbell squat because she was recording us. I do not think it will blow up so much that my wife got this story. What happened after was pretty unexpected in my life is a bit absurd right now. I was worried that she would post our conversation about me refusing her help online and show me as the bad guy. I told my wife about the conversation, and she said that she has seen posts where young girls do add nasty voiceovers and make men my age look like creeps or views. My wife told me that I should just complain to the gym management about her for recording me without my consent just to get ahead of things. When I went to the gym next week, I saw her again. I tried to keep my distance, but she kept on smiling at me. As I finished my sets, she came to me and asked me if we could talk. She wanted to apologize for her behavior from the previous day and how it was wrong of her to assume that I would be okay with her recording me. It was a pleasant surprise as I was not expecting that. I told her that it was okay, and I just don't like to be recorded in general. She followed me outside and continued the conversation. She asked me how long I've been working out, and I could advise her on her form. I told her that there are some really good personal trainers in the gym I could recommend to her, but she told me that she is unemployed and cannot afford them. She told me she will buy me a coffee if I can give her some pointers. At this point, I felt I was just being rude and told her sure, and we went to a new nearby coffee shop. Her name is Haley. She graduated last year, moved back to her mom's house, and is looking for a job. She was very chubby last year and wants to look like the fitness models and is trying hard to get in shape. We had a nice conversation, and I was able to help her with some of her questions. She already knew my name and asked me if my wife would be okay if she follows me on Instagram. I told her that the main purpose of that account is for my wife to spy on my friends' lives, so I generally don't use it. She asked me if I use Snapchat, and I had to remind her that I'm twice her age. This is where it got crazy. When I came home, I told my wife about what happened. My wife loves her reels and wanted to see if she ever posted the video from previous week. I only knew that her first name was Haley and how she looked and told my wife about it. When I came back from work in the evening, my wife was already home and sitting on the sofa. She was grinning ear to ear and told me to immediately sit next to her. Apparently, this girl had been posting about me and calling me her gym crush for the last 2 months. My face is blurred out in all the videos. A lot of videos were her sitting in her car every morning and making up completely fictional romantic stories. Stories about our interactions. Each video had like 100 plus likes, which my wife says is not a lot, but feels like a lot. She had posted some videos of us just passing each other and smiling, or our conversation where I was telling her to stop recording with voiceover about how I approached her in the gym and complimented her body. There was a video from that morning about her coming to me while I was packing up with her saying how I asked her out for coffee. She is just making up fictional romantic for getting likes, and people were commenting and cheering for her. There are also other videos of her working out and posing in the gym locker room. My wife was laughing uncontrollably about how big a sucker I am and how I am internet famous now. I told her this needs to stop, but my wife insisted that she is too invested in the drama now and wants to see what happens next. She said that this girl is really young and just trying to establish herself and get more followers. Plus, she has not done anything inappropriate and is not showing my face in the videos. My wife just wants me to play along and see what crazy Haley does next. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been going to the gym, talking to her every day, and my wife keeps me updated on what story she came up with for the day. We go for a coffee every Wednesday, and I am mentoring her about nutrition and what she should focus on to the best of my abilities. It's all a game for my wife, and I do want Haley to succeed as long as she does not cross a line. However, the whole thing feels really crazy, and I'm too old to deal with this. I'm not sure how long I can keep up with the act. Her behavior seems innocent, but also I'm getting a bit uncomfortable with the whole thing now. Comments. Did the girl know Oop is married? Up. Yes, she knows I'm married. I wear my ring in the gym, and also I talk about my wife all the time to her. I also feel it's a bit weird for a 22-year-old person to make up stories. My wife feels she is just using me as an NPC in her fiction to gain more viewers and create drama. We discussed about it, and she told me about how some girls just make up stories about bad first dates as it gets them a lot of views. My wife feels it's weird, but I need to see the humor in this situation. At least it's entertaining, and she wants to know where her story goes next. Update 2, July 31st, 2024. Hey guys, I wrote a post 2 days ago regarding a Haley, a girl in my gym asking me to spot her, and me refusing to do it because she was recording me. The post blew up, and I wrote an update where I told my wife, and she found out that Haley was just making up fictional stories about me being her gym crush for likes. My wife loves her drama and asked me to continue as it is, as she found Haley's posts harmless and very amusing. Those posts blew up in the last week have been crazy. There are a few people who did dramatic readings of my post last week, and millions of people saw it, one of them being my wife. I thought I was just venting here in anonymity about Haley and my wife. On Saturday morning, my wife came to me and asked me if I posted my story. I asked her how she knows because she never used it. She showed me some person doing a dramatic reading of the story. She was just giddy and asked me if it was really me posting the story. I told her yes, and she just lost it. She was just laughing at how I was being so dramatic talking about a very funny situation. Moreover, most of the commenters were cheering my wife, and I have never seen my wife being so happy since our wedding. We had a bunch of my friends invited for barbecue party that evening, and my wife was also telling me about my post and showing them. Everyone was making fun of Haley's posts and teasing me. My friends even enacted what spotting a barbell squat looks like for their wives and what happens when the person squatting fails. I really started feeling bad for Haley as everyone was just making fun of her and her videos. I felt that we had taken things too far and she did not deserve this kind of ridicule. I told my wife that night that I'm going to tell Haley that we know about her videos the next time we meet, as I feel we are just being mean to her at this point. My wife again started grinning and showed me the comments. Apparently, a lot of people had already started snooping and found a bunch of Haley's posting about their gym crush, and my Haley was one of them. Haley had not responded to any of the comments, but had promptly deleted all her recent videos. I was horrified as a lot of people were accusing her of being a homewrecker and to stay away from married men. I felt so embarrassed that I just felt like I wanted to bury my face and disappear. All I wanted was quick feedback on here and never meant for all this to happen. As days went on, more and more people viewed the video, and Haley was still getting a lot of comments. My wife told me last night that almost 5 million people saw those videos. I really did not want to face Haley anymore and could not get myself to go to the gym for the last 2 days. Yesterday evening, Haley messaged me and asked me if I still plan to have coffee with her today, and my wife told me to just talk to her, as she might also be feeling bad. My wife felt Haley was just doing childish things because she is a child and I should apologize to her for causing her all the stress. I went to the gym today, and to say that things were awkward between us at the start was an understatement. After my workout was done, Haley and I walked to a coffee shop nearby and had a chat. Before I could apologize to her, she started profusely apologizing to me for posting inappropriate posts about me. She said that she was just having fun, and it was like a joke between all her friends. She told me that only her friends and family follow her, and she was just making up fun stories to entertain them. She didn't mean for it to blow up and for so many people to see them. She told me that she woke up this weekend and suddenly her had hundreds of views, likes, and messages. She was confused and checked, and everyone was commenting on her videos, calling her a homewrecker and crazy Haley. She realized that I had posted a story because of some comments and immediately felt embarrassed because she learned that my wife and I knew about her posting stuff about me. She deleted all her recent videos, but people seemed to be still finding her somehow and messaging her on her older posts. Also, her friend's message saw what was happening, and she had to explain to her mom that she was not dating a married man. I also apologized to her and told her I did not know that post blow and was just worried I offended her when I did not spot her the other day. She was surprised that I did not know that, as it seems to be fairly common. I told her that my wife found her content funny, and so she asked me not to tell her. My wife felt she was talented and working so hard on her fitness to be an influencer. At the end, we just laughed about the situation. She told me that she always wanted to know how it would be to be internet famous and enjoyed her 15 minutes of fame. Seems that things are back to normal, and she has promised she will find another gym crush, and we will continue being friends. Finally, I just wanted to ask everyone to not go and find Haley and let her be. Please do not harass any Haley on the internet because of me. I am not going to disclose who the real one, so just stop harassing all Haley. They are not homewreckers and just young kids. That's the end of today's stories. Thank you for listening. If it made you think, feel, or just escape for a while, smash that like and subscribe so you never miss our future stories. See you next time.